Hello everyone, this is part 11 of What If Naruto Was Banished and Becomes Raikage, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to see more comment down below. Taki-san, replied Mitsuhide, with a slight smirk at Kakashi's surprise. Not that I'm complaining or anything, but why is New Kumo involved in this fight? You made it clear earlier that you're staying neutral in this fight and you weren't going to take sides in it. So why are you getting involved in this war now and why are you saving us? Spoke Kakashi as he was unsure if New Kumo was an ally or a new foe. We are not saving you, we're simply here to eliminate a potential threat to the Heavenly Alliance, as now is the ideal time to eliminate them, before they threaten us, spoke Sayuri. You mean Orochimaru and his allies, stated Shino. Correct, replied the noble-looking man next to Sayuri. But I thought you guys said that you were not threatened by them, spoke Kiba. Certain circumstances have caused us to change that belief, answered Mitsuhide. And what would those circumstances be? Asked Kakashi, hoping to get a better understanding of the situation with New Kumo now joining them. Nothing that you need to concern yourself with, Hataki-san, replied Sayuri with a slight smirk. At this Kakashi frowned a little, but quickly let it go. So are we allies then? He asked. No, stated Mitsuhide with a frown of his own, we're not your allies, but neither are we your enemies, we simply share a common enemy, so for now at least, we will fight at your side. At this Kakashi sighed, oh well then, I guess that's good enough, where Mitsuhide just nodded, before Sayuri suddenly spoke. Mitsuhide, we should go, to which Mitsuhide just nodded to and turned to the other two members of his group. Ichigo, Byakuya, let's go, to which the two other members nodded and they all disappeared and reappeared engaging the Kiri and Oto forces. Okay everyone, you heard him, let's go and show them what Konoha shinobis are made out of, spoke Kakashi as he uncovered his Sharingan, which he had covered when he was talking to Mitsuhide. As soon as Kakashi had said this, the Konoha defenders roared their approval and started to fight with renewed strength. On the southern side of the village, crash, clang, clang. After a minute or so of fighting, Konohamaru and Beragu broke apart from their battle with one another as they stared each other down and caught their breaths. As they were doing so, they suddenly saw flashes of light and saw explosions coming from the southern gate and the breach in the southern wall. When they looked up, they saw 5 new Kumo airships with 50 Skyhawk ninjas flying around them. Both the ships and the Skyhawk ninja were firing down on the advancing Iwa reserves that were about to enter the village. New Kumo. What the hell are those bastards doing here? Cried Beragu in surprise. It was after he said this that 2 Iwa Jonins came up to him. At the same time, Shikamaru and a Konoha Jonin joined Konohamaru. Beragu-sama, new Kumo airships have arrived and are attacking our reserve forces, spoke one of the Iwa Jonins. What? Cried a furious Beragu, while at the same time thinking furiously, have we been tricked? Did Konoha actually succeed in allying with New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance and were just lured here? Shikamaru, is that true? Asked Konohamaru, surprise. Yea, it is. The new Kumo airships and the Skyhawk ninja are decimating the Iwa reserves, and from the reports they're doing the same on all sides against the coalition, replied Shikamaru. Upon hearing this, Beragu growled as he knew he had to regain control of his forces and prepare them for the new Kumo's forces that were sure to come soon. We will finish our fight another time, Sarutobi, spoke Beragu before he and his men disappeared. But why is New Kumo here? I thought they were going to stay out of this war, asked Konohamaru with some confusion. I don't know, replied Shikamaru, but let's not look a gift horse in the mouth, as with New Kumo attacking them from the rear and their support we might actually win this war. Konohamaru nodded in agreement before both he, Shikamaru and the Jonin went to get back in the battle. On the western side of the village, Hasengeki 8 trigrams, Mountain Crusher, cried Hinata as she released a high-speed palm thrust forward, fired a powerful wave of chakra, sending Kotaro flying back into a wall nearby and right through it. After sending Kotaro flying, Hinata started panting heavily, as fighting Kotaro had not been easy as he had lived up to his infamous reputation. Hinata had many cuts on her face and her arms, and her robes had been badly torn up from Kotaro's lethal wind attacks, which she had been able to just avoid or block, but not without some damage done. But even still, she had been able to give Kotaro a hard fight as well and give him some bruises of her own to him as well. But just as she thought the fight was over, she heard Kotaro speak out from the hole in the wall that she had just sent him through. Impressive, Hinata-san, you have indeed lived up to my exception, and I can see how you earned your fearsome reputation, spoke Kotaro as he stepped out of the hole he made in the wall covered in a wind-like armor. But how, said Hinata in surprise that that attack should have crippled Kotaro. Knowing what Hinata meant, Kotaro decided to answer her question. This is my futon, K's no Yoroi wind style, armor of wind S, which creates a small whirlwind-like armor around my body. That protected me from your attack, also with this on your taijutsu is worthless against me. Although I will admit that last attack did some damage to me, as I broke a few ribs from it, but still, you have lost this fight. We see about that, cried Hinata as she did a few quick hand seals and cried out Sutan, Mizu Teppo water style, water gun, and fired a powerful blast of water from her mouth at Kotaro. Unfortunately though, the water attack was ineffective against Kotaro wind armor and was just blew apart and scattered when it hit it. After Hinata's attack, Kotaro deactivated his K's no Yoroi and thrust his hand gauntlet forwards, where a chain-bladed whip fired out of it 10 and shot at Hinata, who saw it coming and tried to avoid it. But Kotaro channeled his chakra through the chain-bladed whip and controlled its movements to follow Hinata as she tried to avoid the whip. After which it quickly wrapped itself around Hinata, preventing her from moving. This fight is over, said Kotaro, with a smirk at his victory, as he was about ready to twist and pull his whip and have the blades on the whip to dig into Hinata and kill her. Not yet, it hasn't, cried Hinata as she released a massive amount of her chakra, causing the chain blades to widen and expand out a bit, where she started to spin around and cried out, Hakusho Kaiten, and breaking the chain blade whip. Kotaro quickly retracted what was left of his blade and prepared to continue his fight with Hinata, but before either of them could, they noticed several large explosions and flashes of light. After which they then noticed the new Kumo airships. Before either of them could even begin to wonder what was going on, two voices suddenly shouted out Hinata's name. When Hinata turned, she saw Neji and Hiashi running towards her. Ignoring Hiashi's arrival, Hinata turned to look at Neji, all the while watching Kotaro with her Byakugan on. Neji, what's going on? What are new Kumo airships doing here? We do not know, they just appeared and a few minutes ago and are firing down on the Kusa and Hanya forces outside the village walls, replied Neji. It was upon hearing this that Kotaro decided to speak. It seems we will have to continue our fight another time, Hinata-san, after which before Neji, Hinata or Hiashi could respond or even try and stop him, he dropped a smoke bomb and disappeared. Well, now that was very impressive, spoke a new voice, where Neji, Hinata and Hiashi quickly used their Byakugans to look around for the person who spoke, but couldn't see anyone when they looked around. Who's there? Spoke Neji, believing the person to be another enemy, where he quickly went into a defensive stance. It was after Neji had asked this, that a woman with standard Kumo uniform with a Kumo headband appeared right out of the wall like a ghost, telling the three Hyugas that she was from the Yuki clan, that Jiraiya had told the council and everyone else about. You're from New Kumo, stated Hinata, as she eased her guard a little, but just a little, as she was still unsure what the woman's intentions were yet. Yes, I am. My name is Yuki Nadi, I'm head of the Yuki clan of New Kumo. It is a pleasure meeting you in person, Hinata-sama, as I have heard much about you, spoke Nadi respectfully to Hinata. May I ask why you are all here? And why you are helping us, as the Rokudaime Raikage made it quite clear. He had no wish to have your village or the Heavenly Alliance involved in this war, asked Hinata. I'm afraid I cannot say exactly as of yet, but I will tell you that, it is in my village's and the Heavenly Alliance's best interest to see to it that your enemies do not win this battle and that they are destroyed here, answered Nadi, before she disappeared into the ground. Once Nadi left, Hinata, Neji and Hiashi quickly went off to join the other members of the groups and help in the battle. As the battle raged on in the village, the Raikage's personal airship along with 5 other airships and 50 Skyhawk ninjas broke apart from the remaining 5 airships and 50 other Skyhawk ninjas on the eastern side of the village. They then began to move in on the center of the village, where the Oto forces were fighting the Konoha defenders. After which, they began to fire down at the snake summons there in the Oto forces. Upon seeing the airships, the Konoha defenders in the center were cheering with joy at the arrival of their unexpected saviors. The most notable of these people were the 2 Konoha no Kedakaki Aoi Moju, Konoha's sublime green beasts of prey. Yosh! The youthful shinobis of New Kumo have arrived to help once again, Guy Sensei, cried Lee. Yes, they have, Yosh. The flames of youth truly burn brightly in the shinobis of New Kumo, cried Guy. Guy-sensei, we must now fight twice as hard now, so that our flames of youth will match those of the youthful New Kumo shinobis, cried Lee. Yosh. You are right, my beloved student, we must not allow our flames of youth to be dampened by these unyouthful shinobis, cried Guy. At this point the Oto shinobis that Guy and Lee had been fighting now had large sweat drops at the back of their heads, and began to wonder if all Konoha shinobis were this crazy. But before they could even think more on the subject, they suddenly heard Lee and Guy shout, why yo out, and attack the Oto nins, sending them flying to every direction. With Tsunade, Jiraiya and Gaara currently on their knees, Jiraiya and Tsunade were struggling to keep breathing as the poison effects were worsening and the bodies were becoming more and more sluggish and harder to move in time to block or fight. Gaara was still able to continue fighting, where despite not being able to use his chakra or sand was still able to fight with his katana, and was miraculously able to hold off Orochimaru and the others by himself to give Tsunade and Jiraiya time to rest. Although he was just barely able to hold them off, and would not be able to do for very long, the only reason Gaara was even in better shape than Jiraiya and Tsunade was because he was younger than they were. Hence he could last longer than they could, not to mention his Biju was probably helping him resist the poison effects. But even still it would be only a matter of time before Gaara would become like they were, as he was not immune to the poison effects, despite having a Biju sealed in him. It was at this time that Jiraiya heard the new explosion going on around the village and flashes of light, after which he then turned and saw the Raikage's personal airship along with 5 other airships and 50 Skyhawk ninjas flying above the center of the village. Along with 15 more airships and many more Skyhawk ninjas flying around the village, firing down on the anti-Konoha coalition forces. Tsunade. Gaara. Look, cried Jiraiya in surprise. When Tsunade and Gaara turned around to look, they could not believe what they were seeing, nor could Orochimaru and his allies when they saw the new Kumo airships and Skyhawk ninjas. I don't believe it, new Kumo. But why? Spoke Tsunade in shock and confusion. I don't know, but just be thankful they came, replied Jiraiya with clear relief, since far as he was concerned they were the most beautiful sight he had ever seen in his life. Even Gaara looked relieved when he saw them. It's new Kumo, what the hell are they doing here? Cried Ryoku, with clear surprise. And look, they're firing on our forces, said Shinran, and he pointed to the Oto forces being attacked by the Skyhawk ninjas and one of the giant snakes being blown apart by the lightning cannon on one of the new Kumo airship. What the hell is going on? Cried and equally angrily and surprised Doku. I knew it, I told you all that we should have forgotten about Konoha, and dealt with New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance when we had the chance, spoke Shiro angrily. How could this have happened? After the event with the Raikage, New Kumo shouldn't even care what happened to Konoha, so why are they here? Could they have learned about our plans to attack them when we had dealt with Konoha and sooner? Could Tsunade have actually made a secret alliance with New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, and the whole event with the Raikage in Konoha had been a sham? So to make us think that New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance would not help them, so that they could lead us into this trap, thought Orochimaru in anger and confusion. No, it's not possible they couldn't have. Orochimaru, we have to finish them off now and get back to our forces and reorganize them before they are destroyed by the new Kumo forces, spoke Ryoku fiercely. Yes, I agree, replied Orochimaru as he got ready along with the others. Gaara, Tsunade and Jiraiya quickly regrouped and forced their weakened bodies to move and prepare to fight, as with New Kumo now joining the fight on their side. They now had a fighting chance of winning this war and they weren't going to let it go by dying. End Gundam 00 Ost 229 counterattack eastern side of the village. Currently fighting the Kiri forces on the eastern front, Mitsuhide was cutting down any and all Kiri forces that stood against him, killing them with chilling ease and precision with his katana. As well with shurikens and kunais by throwing them at any Kiri nins that were distances away from him, hitting and killing them with pinpoint precision and accuracy. To most of the Kiri nin, Mitsuhide was nothing but a white blur, as he moved too fast for any of them to react quickly enough to defend themselves. Who is this guy? Cried a panicking Kiri nin as he didn't know what was going on, nor who they were fighting against. It's Shirotakai no Kiri, Mist's White Death, Akechi Mitsuhide, said a frightened Kiri nin as he knew Mitsuhide's reputation back when he's still with Kiri. Actually, I go by the title of Kumo no Shirotaka, White Falcon of Cloud, said Mitsuhide as stabbed the first Kiri nin in the back of his head with a kunai, while cut off the head of the other with his katana. As Mitsuhide turned around, he turned his head slightly so to avoid a fly kunai that was sent by a Kiri-nin 100 feet away from him, and was using a kunai launcher. Using his Takugan, Hawkeye, to target the Kiri-nin, Mitsuhide then threw a shuriken of his own at the Kiri-nin. The shuriken flew through the air at such incredible speed and accuracy that it hit the Kiri-nin right on the head between his eyes within seconds of being thrown by Mitsuhide and killed the Kiri-nin instantly. It was after dealing with that Kiri-nin that a Kiri-jonin appeared shouting out, "Die you traitor, Suten, Mizu Kamakiri, water style, rising water slicer." Mitsuhide of course countered this attack with Ninpo, Shinku Kamaitaki, ninja art, vacuum razor wind T. The high-power wind attack quickly clashed against the water technique and overpowered it, causing it to backlash against the Kiri-jonin who fired it. The Kiri-jonin quickly jumped away from being hit, where upon landing on nearby street, he saw Mitsuhide heading towards him at astonishing speed. Quickly the Kiri-jonin did a few hand seals and then cried out, "Doten, Doryuheiki," creating a large earth wall to protect himself from Mitsuhide. Unfortunately though, Mitsuhide was not deterred, when he saw the large wall of earth, where quickly using the second level of his Takugan and hit a certain point of the earth wall with the tip of the blade of his katana, causing the earth wall to collapse into pieces. The Kiri-jonin was so shocked after seeing his earth wall so easily fall apart after a single hit, that he failed to take notice of Mitsuhide in time, who then slashed his katana at the jonin's stomach. When the jonin fell to his knees holding his bleeding stomach and was slowing dying, he only muttered one word. How? Clearly you do not know the special ability of the second level of my Takugan, which allows me to see life points, which is a certain points that every living being and object has. When I hit certain points I can destroy, disable or kill anyone or anything. In a way it works similar to the Hyuga clan's Juken gentle fist but is much deadlier. The point I just hit on that wall was the center life point of the wall, which is the weakest point on anything, yet the most difficult to hit, where once I hit it will fall apart like a house of cards, spoke Mitsuhide. After which he then raised his katana again and severed the jonin head from his body, to give him a quick and clean death. At the same time this was happening, several Kiri-nins found themselves in a thick crimson-red mist. Fool, thought the leader of the group, does this person really think that they can beat us using Kirigaku no Jutsu, art of hiding in the mist, the very technique that our village created and specialize in? Don't be nervous, despite the color difference this is still Kirigaku no Jutsu, meaning we have the advantage, so when whoever attacks us we be ready for them, spoke the leader quietly to his team. How wrong you are, spoke a ghostly-like female voice. Who there, show yourself, spoke the leader angrily. At this a woman's face made out of the red mist appeared in front of the Kiri group leader. When the Kiri-nins saw the face made out of mist they were naturally surprised. But soon after, the surprised look on the group leader turned to a look of fear, where his face turned pure white with fear. Since he then recognized the face of the woman that they were now seeing, as he had seen her face of Kiri's bingo book. Kiri no Shinkutakai Crimson Death of Mist Miyoshi Sayuri, spoke the group leader with fear, which was mimicked by the rest of his team, as they had all heard of the infamous Nuke Nin who killed Kiri's entire council single-handedly. Ah, good you do remember me, but I'm afraid, I no longer go by that name, as I now known as Shinkukiri no Kumo Cloud's Crimson Mist, spoke Sayuri. Upon realizing who they were dealing with, the Kiri-nins tried to get out of the mist, but could not get out, for whatever direction they went the mist would follow them. When they tired to shunshin out nothing happened. What going on? Cried one of the Kiri-nins. Do not bother trying to use your chakra, as when in my large-scale mist form, I can drain the chakra out of the bodies of any one in it and add it to my own. The same can be said when you release chakra to use jutsu, spoke Sayuri with a slight chuckle, as she was assumed by the angry and fearful looks on the Kiri-nins' faces. Come out and fight us fair, you bitch, spoke another Kiri-nin. The next second a short curved sword appeared out of the Kiri-nin's chest. That wasn't a very polite thing to a lady such as myself, replied Sayuri coldly when she stabbed the Kiri-nin with her short curved sword, while holding the other in her other hand. As Sayuri drew her curved sword back out of the dead Kiri-nin's body, which fell to the ground, another Kiri-nin appeared behind her, who had his katana in hand and swung it at Sayuri, while shouting, "Die you traitorous bitch." But as soon as he swung his katana at Sayuri, her body turned to mist and went right through her. Before the Kiri-nin even knew what happened, Sayuri in her mist form entered through his mouth, where after a few seconds, the Kiri-nin started to dry out as all the moisture in his body was absorbed by Sayuri from the inside, turning him into a dried husk. Sayuri then quickly left the now dead Kiri-nin's body, and went into another nearby Kiri-nin, but instead of absorbing all the moisture in his body, she overflowed it, filling his lungs with water and causing him to drown. After killing and leaving the other Kiri-nin's body, Sayuri then decided to finish up this fight, where she caused her crimson mist to become even thicker. After which she then decided to use the Sirento Kiringu Jutsu, silent killing technique, to finish off the remaining other Kiri-nins in her mist. Within a few minutes the crimson mist dissipated, where it revealed the dead bodies of the remaining Kiri group, with Sayuri standing over them. Even though all Kiri-nins were trained standardly in Sirento Kiringu, Sayuri was a true master of it, especially when used in combination with Kirigaku no Jutsu. When combing these two techniques together, few if any could ever hope to beat Sayuri or even survive. With the Kiri group dead, a sadistic smirk appeared of Sayuri's face and spoke out loud to herself, "Now then, who will I fight next?" After which Sayuri disappeared to search out for her next opponent or victim, whichever way a person would look at it. Not too far from where Sayuri was fighting the Kiri shinobis, Ichigo and Byakuya were fighting the Oto forces that were coming in from the center of the village. Using his high speed and superior swordsmanship, Ichigo was able to easily deal with any Oto shinobi, as despite his young age he was a highly skilled shinobi. At the same time, near where Ichigo was fighting Byakuya, was slaughter the Oto force around him with chilling ease by using his famed Kubaten, Senbonzakura no Jutsu, plant-style, thousand cherry blossoms technique. Where he controlled the thousands of sakura petals in a similar manner that Gaara controlled his sand, where he used the thousands of sakura petal, like thousands of tiny blades to cut the Oto shinobis to pieces. Many of the Konoha defenders could not help but stare at how easily and how many enemy shinobis this small team of new Kumo shinobis were killing, after which many of the defenders were glad that new Kumo was at least fighting with them instead of against them. As this was happening, Kakashi was knocking out an Oto nin, where he was then called by an Anbu. "Kakashi-san, look," spoke the Anbu wearing a monkey-shaped Anbu mask, who then pointed out to the main gate and breach to the eastern side of the village. When Kakashi looked, he saw 800 new Kumo shinobis charging forward out of the forestry, attacking the now decimated fifth wave outside the village, which was barely even at half strength thanks new Kumo surprise air attack. Within minutes the new Kumo forces that arrived swept away the remainder of the Kiri fifth wave, where they were killed, captured or retreated. After which the new Kumo force quickly moved forward into the village and started to attack the surprised Kiri forces in the village from behind. Upon seeing the arrival of the new Kumo forces, all the remaining Konoha defenders of the eastern side of the village were emboldened even further by the arrival of more reinforcements from new Kumo. The Konoha defenders then began to push back the Kiri forces back, while the new Kumo force attacked the Kiri forces from the rear, where once again the Kiri forces were wedged in between two enemy forces pushing forward. During the fight, Yugao was doing her part as she fought several Kiri nins by herself, but just as she finished off the last one, another appeared from behind with a kunai launcher in his hand and fired it. Before Yugao knew it, two kunais were flying in the air and pierced right into Yugao's right shoulder and the other into her left leg, piercing her deeply and causing her to fall on her knees in pain and drop her katana. She then pulled out the kunai in her shoulder and the other in her leg and then turned around to see where the Kiri nin that shot her was, and when she did, she saw him standing over her with his kunai launcher right at her face, ready to fire. "Time to die, Konoha bitch," spoke the Kiri nin right when he was about to fire. At the same, Yugao closed her eyes as she knew she was dead, while thinking, "Hey it, I'm coming." But just when the Kiri shinobi was about to fire, a long metal spear came out of the Kiri ninja's chest, killing him within seconds of being stabbed by the spear. When Yugao opened her eyes after hearing the man's scream and not feeling a kunai going through her, she opened her eyes and looked up to see the spear that appeared in the Kiri nin's chest being pulled out. When the man's fell down, she saw who her savior was. He was a tall, young and handsome man with long brown hair and a Kumo headband around his head. 11. "Are you all right, miss?" asked the man politely. Why yes I am. Thank you," spoke Yugao as she was still a bit shocked at what had just happened. "Who are you?" "My name is Zhao Yun, captain of Daimyo's royal guard to the Daimyo of Kaminari no Kuni." Hearing this of course shocked Yugao, as it was an unusual position for a shinobi of a shinobi village to have. Sure, the fire daimyo had the Shugon and Junichi 12 guardian ninja, but they were not Konoha shinobis. as they took orders from Fire Daimyo and would not take part in Konoha battles or any missions for it, nor would they wear Konoha headbands. If a shinobi of Konoha became a member of the Shugonen Junichi, they would have to give their shinobi rank in the village up, although they could take it back once they resigned or retired from the Shugonen Junichi, where the same could be said the other way around. It was then that Zhao noticed Yugao was wounded and went and picked her up in his hands. What are you doing?" cried a surprised and slightly embarrassed Yugao, who was blushing slightly as she was an Anbu captain and was not used to being carried like this and was even slightly humiliated. "You're wounded and you are in need medical treatment," replied Zhao. "It's nothing, I can take care of myself," argued Yugao, although she knew with the wound on her leg she could not walk let alone run, and her wound in her shoulder would decrease her fighting ability. But still her pride as a kunoichi and as her Anbu captain refused to allow to admit that. Fortunately though, Zhao Yun ignored Yugao's protests and told her he would not let her go until a medic cleared her. Yugao would have argued more, but when she looked at Zhao's face she knew she would not win this argument and relented. Although she did get Zhao to pick up and give her Heiat's katana, which she had dropped when wounded, telling him that it had important sentimental value to her. After picking up the katana and giving it to Yugao, Zhao then went off to bring her to a nearby new Kumo medic, to heal her wounds. Western side of the village. On the western side of the village, Hinata was fighting fiercely alongside many of her clan's men and women, with her sister Hanabi fighting nearby on her right-hand side, and Hyashi and Neji fighting not too far away from her on her left-hand side. Also a bit away ahead of her was her sensei Kurenai, who was fighting several Kusanins with a few Konoha shinobis from the Kurama clan, where they used their genjutsus to confuse or knocking out any enemy shinobis that they met. As the fighting became fiercer, Hinata saw a large force of shinobi mercenaries belonging to the Hanya clan heading right for Kurenai and the other shinobis with her. "Kurenai sensei, look out," cried Hinata, warning her sensei of the large incoming force of enemy ninjas. Hearing Hinata and turning to see the incoming force, Kurenai quickly ordered the Kurama clan members to fall back, which they did. But as soon as she was about to so herself, a stray fire jutsu fired by a Konoha ninja hit just next to her, knocking her off her feet and sending her flying off several feet away. Fortunately though, she wasn't hurt, but was a bit dizzy from the blast. As Kurenai tried to regain her bearings, the enemy force was quickly shortening the distance between them. "Kurenai sensei," cried Hinata as she tried to save her sensei, but knew she could not get there in time. But just as the enemy force was nearing Kurenai, a sudden loud cry was heard shouting out, "Kaiten, Huome, fire style, mystical phoenix rain." After which a dozen of so birds made out of fire appeared out of almost nowhere and hit the group of Hanya clan mercenaries, causing massive explosions of fire to erupted in the street that the enemy shinobi were traveling in, where many of them were killed because of them. After which a tall man with long brown hair with a red headband around his head stood in front of her. "Are you all right, miss?" asked the man politely, turning to Kurenai. Why yes I am fine thank you," spoke Kurenai as she was still dizzy from the blast. "Who are you?" "My name is Joe Ui, am from Kaminari no Kuni," replied Joe. "You're from New Kumo," spoke Kurenai. "I'm not a New Kumo shinobi, if that is what you're referring, but I am from New Kumo," replied Joe. Confused by what Joe was saying, as he stated he was from New Kumo but wasn't a shinobi, yet still knew ninjutsu. But before Kurenai could ask him what he meant, Joe drew his sword at the enemy force that he had just attacked, which had just quickly reorganized themselves. Despite losing half their number because of Joe Yu attack, but before they could attack Joe and Kurenai, another voice spoke out, "Am no Yajirushi, raining arrows v." After which 100 or so small blue arrows made out of chakra appeared and rained down on the enemy shinobis, killing about a third of them, while the rest were able to avoid. As soon as the attack ended, another voice cried out, "Koten, Koga, Steel's release, Steel Fangs, W," after which a dozen of small metal points shaped like small arrowheads flew straight at several of the enemy ninjas, killing them. After that attack, yet another voice, Kuchio's no Jutsu, summoning technique, where a large black lion the size of a small house with red eye, a white mane and golden claws appeared in front of the remaining enemy shinobis. Also sitting on top of the large summons was a young girl with short black hair in her early 20s, wearing a navy blue tank top with a white Hawaiian flowered design underneath a sleeveless dark gray vest. Both stopped just below the rib cage, revealing her midriff. She also wore shorts, a dark gray color belted hip pack that rested across her right hip. along with a black and white forehead protector with the Kumo symbol on it, as well as a white wristband on her right arm and a black cloth that starts from below her elbow and partially covers her left hand. She also had a pair of lace knee-high boots with black socks that have 2 white stripes at the top and carried a large Fuma shuriken on her back. Okay, Rain, time to show these guys what it's like to face a summons of the Kisaragi clan, spoke the young girl. With pleasure, spoke the Black Lion and then roared out, Raiten, Raiko, lightning style, thunder roar. Where he fired a powerful blast of lightning out of his mouth much like roar and utterly destroyed the remaining enemy group. Nicely done Yuffie-san and Rain-san, and impeccable timing Ryu-san and Tomo-san, spoke Joe to the young man with glasses named Ryu and a young girl named Tomo who was next to Ryu, both of whom appeared after the rain destroyed the enemy force and then puffed away. Naturally, of course, spoke Ryu as he fixed his glasses. Ryu wore a long white glove on his left hand that was connected to the bow, which seemed to spring from it. He also wore what appeared to be samurai-like armor covering his left side and arm. The shoulder armor was a silvery color, bearing the common blue cross that was normally on Ashida clan members' clothes, while the white clothing area of the outfit contains rows of parallel blue vertical lines. 12. It was nothing, spoke Tomo simply. Tomo had long black hair with green eyes and wore black leather pants with black boots and a black tank top that stopped to show her midriff and had short black armbands on both her arms. Piece of cake, although you could have handled them simply enough if we hadn't come, said Yuffie with a small smile. Kurenai-sensei, are you all right? Asked Hinata who just appeared and went to help her sensei back on her feet. Yes, I'm fine Hinata, thanks to these people, spoke Kurenai, as she held her head as it still stung a little. I assume that you're from New Kumo, spoke Neji as Hiyashi and Hanabi arrived together with Hinata, although he already knew they were, as Yuffie wore a Kumo headband unlike the others. Yes they are, as they are with me, spoke Nadi as she appeared out of the ground like a ghost surprising the Konoha nins for a moment as they were still not used to that. Even though Neji, Hiyashi and Hinata knew she could do that after meeting her earlier. It was after Nadi's sudden appears that Kurenai noticed explosions caused by lightning jutsus along with a few other elemental ninjutsu explosions coming from the western gateway and the breach in the western wall behind the Kusa and Hanya clan lines. She knew that they weren't from the new Kumo airships and Skyhawk ninjas as they were no falling to the ground like the others. What going on over there at the gateway and the breach? There shouldn't be any fighting at either of those places as the Kusa and Hanya clan forces already have control of them, spoke Kurenai as she pointed to the direction of the western gateway. That would be our ground forces attacking the Kusa and Hanya clan forces from behind, spoke Joe. But before any of the Konoha group could ask what exactly was happening there, a Hyuga member suddenly appeared in front of Hinata on one knee. Hinata-sama, I have urgent news to report. Then report, spoke Hinata, authoritatively showing why she was now the head of the Hyuga clan. We have sighted a large force estimated of about 800 shinobis belonging to New Kumogaku entering the village and attacking the enemy from behind, causing much confusion among them, spoke Ko. I believe that with the arrival of our ground forces, which are now attacking the enemy from behind, you should have your own forces make a counterattack and trap the enemy between us, spoke Ryu. Hinata of course nodded in agreement and turned to Ko and told him to inform all remaining Konoha, Suna and Tsuchigamo clan shinobis on the western front to counterattack the Kusa and Hanya clan forces. Once Ko nodded his head in understanding and left, Nadi then spoke again, well then I believe that we should get back to the fight and rejoin our forces, after which Nadi, Joe, Ryu, Yuffie went off. Tomo was about to follow after them but before she did, she turned slightly to Hinata and the others. Are you not coming? This is your village after all. Nodding their heads, Hinata and the others quickly followed to rejoin the battle and drive the enemy out of their village. Southern side of the village, Mitoboken meatball punch. Why cried Choji in his giant form, where his fist became twice the size of already giant size, and slammed his fist right into the side of one of the giant bear summon's head, knocking it out when it hit the ground and crushed some building near it. After knocking the giant bear summon out, Choji's fist returned to normal, but once it did, Choji was left panting and sweating slightly, where he was forced to shrink down to his normal size. This was because the technique he used took a lot out of him as maintaining his giant form and then using a Bubanbaika no Jutsu partial multi-size technique to increase his fist to go beyond his limit was not easy on his body, not to mention it took a lot of chakra to use. Once he returned to his normal size, he saw his father fighting with one of the last two remaining bear summons, as the first had been killed by a trap in the beginning of the battle. The second had been killed by a squadron of Skyhawk ninjas using a combination of wind, lightning and fire ninjutsu along with several high-powered exploding notes, and he himself had dealt with the third, leaving two left. His three clansmen who had been battling beside him and father against the bear summons had been wounded from battling the bear summons and had to return to their normal size to get medical treatment. It was after he returned to his normal size that Shikamaru and Ino ran up to him. "Choji, are you alright?" asked Ino with clear concern on her face and in her voice. "I'm fine, Ino-chan, just a bit tired and hunger, but that's nothing that Miko-chan home cooking couldn't solve," answered Choji with a smile as he mentioned his wife's cooking. At hearing this, the two friends and teammates smiled, knowing that he would be fine. "You're one troublesome person, Choji," spoke Shikamaru with a slight smile, which quickly disappeared when he saw a massive shadow cover them and heard a monstrous roar. When they looked up, they saw one of the last two remaining giant bear summons standing over them with its paw ready to slam down on them. Seeing this, Choji quickly used his Buban Biker no Jutsu to increase the size of his fist hands and pushed both Ino and Shikamaru away so that they would not be crushed by the bear's paw. After being pushed away by Choji, both Ino and Shikamaru watched with fear as the giant bear's paw came down on their friend, where the only thing they could do was watch and shout out "Choji." As the bear's paw was about to come down on Choji, an unknown voice suddenly shouted out, "Sabuton, Suna no Tate, Sand Style, Sand Shield." Upon which a large cloud of dust blocked Shikamaru's and Ino's view of what happened. Fearing the worst after the dust cleared from the attack, the two friends could barely bring themselves to open their eyes to see what had happened. But when they did, they were shocked, yet overjoyed to see that Choji had not been crushed under the giant bear summon's paw. Instead, he had been protected by a shield of sand, which fell apart when the giant bear summons lifted its paw up. Quickly, both Shikamaru and Ino raced over to their friend to see if he was alright, which he thankfully was, although was slightly shaken and confused at what happened, as he was certain he'd be dead. Quickly regaining themselves, Shikamaru and the others looked around for Gaara, who they believed was the one who had saved Choji, but before they could fully look around, they heard someone cry out, "Daikamiteki no Jutsu, Great Sickle Weasel Technique." After which a powerful gust of wind erupted and hit the giant bear summon and pushed it back and causing many cuts on its body. When the attack ended, a tall woman who looked to be in her mid to late 30s appeared in front of Shikamaru, Ino and Choji, holding a large fan similar to the one Temari had. "Are you three okay?" asked the woman without turning to them, as she continued to watch the giant bear summon. "Yay, we are, thanks, but who are you?" asked Ino. "My name is Kai Wengi 13, I am leader of the Wengi clan and I'm a shinobi of New Kumo," replied Kai. At this, Shikamaru and the other eyes widen, as they remembered Jiraiya mentioning the Wengi clan being part of New Kumo, back when he came from his intel mission in Kaminari no Kuni. Troublesome, now I remember, Jiraiya-sama mentioned that the Wengi clan were able to mimic Gaara's sand jutsus to a certain extent. Temari even said that they were also powerful wind jutsu users, thought Shikamaru as he remembered hearing about the Wengi clan from Jiraiya after his intel mission and Temari back when they dated. Soon after, though, the giant bear summons let out another loud roar and was about to attack Kai Wengi, Shikamaru and the others. But before it could, a black blur suddenly appeared beside the bear's head, where it then hit it, causing the bear summon to stumble slightly sideways from the force of the hit. Before the bear could even regain itself, the blur appeared on top of its head, revealing it to be a tall blonde woman. The woman then charged her hands up with a massive amount of lightning chakra and slammed her hands down on top of the giant bear's head and cried out, "Jinrai Thunderclap!" said. After which massive voltages erupted all over the giant bear summon's body, causing it to roar out in pain from the lightning attack, where soon after it fell to the ground unconscious. Where Kai, Shikamaru and the other had to jump away to a house rooftop nearby to avoid being crushed by the bear summon's body, like several other buildings that it crashed on. After which the air around the unconscious giant bear became filled with the smell of burnt fur. When the dust cleared from the giant bear summons falling, the women that had been on top of the bear's head appeared in front of them. "Must you always make a scene when you arrive, Tyra?" spoke Kai, who was slightly annoyed at the destruction the woman named Tyra caused when the giant bear collapsed on the ground. At this, Tyra just smirked and said, "Well, like the old saying, if you want to make an entrance, you might as well make it big." Tyra was a tall and extremely attractive young woman in her mid-20s with long blonde hair that went down to her rear and wore black leather pants with tall black leather boots. She also wore a strapless short corset that stopped short to show her midriff. The corset also helped to emphasize her ample D-cup breasts. The corset also split open between her breast and go down in a lightning bolt shape but was held together by thin but strong strands of string that went in between the split. This would in turn often distract male and certain female enemy ninjas that she fought. She also wore 2 long armbands on both her arms and a choker around her neck. At this, Kai only shook her head and smirked in amusement. Honestly, I don't know who worse, you or your husband, at the way you both act at times. This remark of course just caused Tyra to smirk. Excuse me, but who are you? Spoke Ino as she looked at Tyra. Allow me to introduce you to my teammate Tyra and a member of the Go Genso no Megami, the 5 elemental goddesses, like myself. The Go Genso no Megami? Asked Choji, not fully understanding, as he never heard of such a group. Troublesome, spoke Shikamaru before either Kai or Tyra could answer Choji's question. You're a group of kunoikis that are no doubt highly skilled and specialize in elemental ninjutsu, where there are 5 of you who specialize each in one of the 5 main elements. At this, both Kai and Tiara smirked, right on the first guess, but then again I heard that despite you Naras being slow to act and being pretty much lazy, your minds are as sharp and as quick as a master katana sword, spoke Tyra. Indeed, you're correct, Shikamaru-san. There are 5 members in our group and each of us specialize in each of the 5 main elements. Tyra, as you no doubt know, is highly skilled in lightning jutsu and I'm quite skilled in wind jutsu. While the other members of our group specialize in the other remaining 3 main elements, spoke Kai. Once the explanation were done, Kai, Tyra and the Neo Ino Shikacho noticed some heavy activity and fighting going on behind the Iwa lines. What's going on there? Asked Ino. My guess is that our ground forces have finally arrived, spoke Tyra. How many shinobis did you bring? Asked Shikamaru. About 2,400, where it has been split into 3 battalions consisting of 800 shinobis each, attacking each of 3 breaches that the enemy are attacking from, replied Tyra. At this, Shikamaru nodded in understand, where even though the new Kumo force was about 1/10 of the enemy coalition size, they had the advantages of surprise, outmaneuvering the enemy, and had air support. With these along Konoha and its allies, they stood a real chance of winning this battle. Soon enough, the group decided to rejoin the battle to drive the enemy out of Konoha. Not too far from where Shikamaru and the others met Kai and Tyra, Choji's father Choza was battling with the last of the bear summons, and nearby him were his old teammates Inoki and Shikaku fighting several Iwa nins. As Choza was battling the last bear summons, the giant bear made a slash at him with its large claws, fortunately though his armor had protected him from any harm. But before he re-engaged the bear summons, a young girl's voice suddenly shouted out, Kaiten, Jokaku Enjo fire style, Fortress Blaze, after which an immense wall of flame appeared around the bear summons and surrounded it and then formed a huge contained sphere of flame that trapped it. What the hell is that? Cried Choza in surprise. At this, a young girl, who looked to be no older than 12, appeared on a nearby rooftop giggle. Hey old guys, are you all okay? Shouted the girl to Choza, Inoki and Shikaku, who were still staring dumbfounded at the wall of fire that trapped the bear summons. Hey, are you all deaf? Cried the girl, I asked you if you were okay. At this, the 3 men got out of their stupor and turned to girl who looked to be no more than 12 years old, where Inoki was the first to speak. Yes, we're fine thank you, but who are you? Name's Pimiko and don't you forget it, I'm Hai no Megami, fire goddess, and one of the Go Genso no Megami of New Kumo, spoke the girl proudly. As she said this, the 3 elder men could only stare as they still found it hard to accept that a girl like that could trap a massive summons like that bear with a high-level jutsu like that. But before any of them could even ask her how she did this, Pimiko spoke up again. See you guys around, I got some more fighting to do, don't overstrain yourselves, said Pimiko as she then jumped off into the streets to help in the fighting. When she left, the 3 men turned once again, looked at the fiery sphere, after which Shikaku muttered the words troublesome, which his teammates could only nodded their heads in agreement, before they got over what just happened and went back to join the fighting. Currently fighting several Iwa nins, were Sumha Ninken Kuromaru and Shibi. After a few minutes of fierce fighting, the 2 Konoha shinobis had defeated their adversaries. But as soon as they did, they saw a dozen or so more Iwa nins heading their way. As they prepared to fight the new wave of enemy shinobis, a young girl of about 12 years of age, wearing a short white dress outfit, appeared a few feet in front of them. When they saw the girl, they were both naturally surprised as all civilians were supposed to have been evacuated days ago. Upon seeing the girl, Soom quickly shouted, "Girl, get out of the way and hide, this is no place for you to be here." But despite Soom's cries, the girl did not respond to it, as if she did not hear them. As the Iwa Ning grew closer, the girl quickly did a quick hand seal and cried out, "Sutan, Bakusui Shoha, water style, exploding water colliding wave." After which great volume of water erupted from her mouth, and a massive wave of water surged forward towards the charging Iwa Nins, who could not avoid the massive wave of water and were washed away down the narrow street by the wave. Both Shibi and Soom were naturally greatly surprised by a young 12-year-old girl being able to use a high-level B-rank level Sutan Jutsu and decided to confront her. "Excuse me, young girl, but who are you and what are you doing here?" asked Shibi. "Oh, my apologizes," said the girl politely, only really noticing Soom and Shibi now. "My name is Yoshino of New Kumo. It is a pleasure to meet you," finished the girl with a slight bow. When Soom and Shibi asked what she was doing here, as other than in emergency, when every shinobi was needed in a battle, young genins and shinobis below the age of 16 were kept out of large-scale battles such as this. Yoshino quickly explained that she was a member of an elite group of kunoikis called the Go Genso no Megami, and she was known as the Mizu no Megami due to her high skill in water ninjutsu. Surprised by this, both Shibi and Soom tried to find out more at why she was here and about her group, but before they could, the girl told them that she had to leave and help out in the battle, where she then left. Not wanting to leave all the fighting to a young girl, both Shibi and Soom followed after her to help. Not far from where Soom and Shibi had been fighting, Kiba's sister Hana, her Ninkans, the three Hamaru brothers, Konohamaru and his teammates Mogi and Udon, along with some other Konoha and Suna ninjas, were currently in a large battle with a large group of Iwa ninjas. As the battle continued, Mogi noticed more Iwa shinobis coming towards them and threatening to overwhelm them. "Konohamaru, more Iwa nins are coming this way, we need to fall back before they overwhelm us," cried Mogi. "We can't, if we fall back then Iwa will break through this sector and will split our line in two. We're holding this position right down to the last shinobi," spoke a steadfast Konohamaru. As he wasn't going to allow the village that his parents, grandparents and uncle fought and died for be destroyed, and would not allow Konoha fall, at least not until he accomplished his dream of being Hokage both for himself and for Naruto. "Well spoken, Konohamaru-san," spoke an unknown female voice from above. When they looked up on a nearby rooftop, they saw a tall woman with long brown hair that went down to her mid-back, clad in ornate, armored green kimono, along with Kumo headband around her head. "Who are you?" asked a surprised Konohamaru, as he did not recognize her, although he knew she was from New Kumo due to her headband symbol. "I am Shinman Uki of New Kumo, also known as Chi no Megami, goddess of earth, and member of the Go Genso no Megami," spoke the woman named Uki. "Shinman Uki of the Shinman family," spoke one of the Iwa nins who was the captain of the group, with slight confusion look, that quickly turned to anger. "You traitor! You betrayed our village by joining our enemies." "I am no traitor, the only traitors here are Ryoku and those like you who support and follow him, those who helped him murder the rightful leader of Awagaku Ryotenba no Onoki, Onoki of both scales, the Sandaime Tsuchikage, along with his clan. As well as my family, who were murdered by mercenaries hired Ryoku, because they were the only ones that had the courage to speak out and resist Ryoku's tyrannical rule," spoke Uki with clear anger and hatred in her voice when she said this. "Don't listen to her, she nothing more than a filthy traitor, trying to discredit the Tsuchikage, and even if what she said is true about her family, they were nothing but traitors themselves as well, as any who defies the Tsuchikages are traitors to Iwa," spoke the Iwa captain to his shinobis. "Just as I expect for a stooge of Ryoku to say," spoke Uki with a slight disgust. "Kill her," cried the Iwa captain, but before he or any of the other Iwa nins could even attack her, Uki did a quick ram seal and cried out, "Doten, Doryuheiki," and created a massive wide wall of earth that split the Konoha defenders from the Iwa force apart, with Uki standing on top of the wall. After which she did another hand seal and slammed her hand on the massive wall of earth and cried out, "Doten, a Wanage Ataku earth style, rock bombardment. A1. Upon which the massive wide wall of earth broke apart into large pieces and collapsed down on the large group of Iwa nins who could not avoid it due to the sheer size and width of the wall when it collapsed down on them, where they were crushed by the falling boulders. When the attack ended, any buildings or Iwa nins within 100 meters of the collapsing earth wall were crushed by the falling rocks. The Konoha and Suna ninjas were of course stunned at how Uki had created such a massive wall of earth and how she killed at least 60 Iwa ninjas along with destroying everything else in front of her in the one attack. Damn, I'm glad she on our side, spoke Konohamaru, which got nods of agreement from the rest of his group, as they watched Uki go off to fight more Iwa nins. Soon after though Konohamaru and the others quickly got out of their stupors and got their heads back in the game and went to join Uki and drive back the Iwa nins, who were now pinned between the Konoha defenders and the newly arrived new Kumo shinobis, as they were being attacked from the front and the back. On board the Raikage's on board his personal airship, the Raikage was watching the battle from his command seat on the bridge of the ship. As he was observing, the captain of the ship and the commander of the airship fleet Lu Xun approached him and saluted him. Report Commander, spoke the Raikage-sama, I am pleased to report that our surprise attack has succeeded without fault, as our forces have caught the enemy by complete surprise, and are in total confusion. The enemy fifth wave has been utterly destroyed, where any reaming shinobis from it have retreated or have been killed or captured by our own forces, who are now currently attacking the other enemy's forces rear, reported Lu Xun. Excellent work Commander, now inform all airship around the village to rendezvous at our position, and inform them that phase meteor is about to begin, replied the Raikage. Hi Raikage-sama, said Lu Xun as he saluted, before going to the intercom for the airship. Attention all shinobi personnel, phase meteor is about to begin, I repeat phase meteor is about to begin, all shinobi personnel are to report to their assigned points, I say again all shinobi personnel are to report to their assigned points, spoke Lu Xun over the radio. Gundam Seed Destiny OST-2, Hajimari ga Ue. After several minutes, all 20 airships that were flying above around the center of Konoha and were now gathered around the Raikage personal airship. After which the Raikage gave the order to begin, where all the new Kumo airship opened the large bomb bay doors on the underbelly of the airships, where over 400 man-size objects fell to the ground from the airship fleet. From the ground many shinobis on both sides stopped their fighting to see the airship fleet dropping the objects. A new Kumo dropping bombs now, thought a Konoha ninja who saw the airships dropping the objects. Within seconds the objects crashing to the ground, all within close proximity of each other, where many even went through the roofs of several buildings. But soon after crashing to the ground, the objects didn't blow up like many expected them to. Instead they opened up showing that they were not bombs but dropping pods. After opening up, the 400 shinobis inside the pods quickly got out of them and gathered together. But 300 of these shinobis were not ordinary new Kumo shinobis, they were storm, bolt and shock shinobis, and among them were Yoruichi, Suafon and Ru, the leaders of each of these Anbu divisions. The remaining other 100 shinobis that were dropped by the airships were combat medics and other shinobis of elite skills. Also with them as well was the leader of the CIND division Yukai Masato, who was eager to deal some major payback on Oto and Orochimaru for what he did to him. Alike ladies and gents, it's time to take care of this trash, spoke Yoruichi. Show them how the shinobis of New Kumo fight, said Suafon. For the glory of New Kumo, the Heavenly Alliance and the Raikage, spoke Ru. Hi, shouted all 300 Anbu-level ninjas together, before they broke apart in their teams and began to attack the Oto shinobis. With the arrival of the Shock, Bolt and Storm Battalion, the battle in the center of Konoha was quickly turning against the invaders. As the battalion of Anbu ninjas proved to be too much for the Oto ninjas to handle, even Orochimaru's elite Sonic division was no match for New Kumo's elite Storm shinobis. Using their superior training and fighting skills along with their superior teamwork, the three Anbu division units were quickly cutting down the Oto shinobis, who were falling like flies. At the same time that the three Anbu divisions from New Kumo arrived, Gamaiken and Katsuyu along with Sasuke's Hawk Summons, also arrived in the center of the village to help Gamma Hero and Gamabunta against the remaining 7 giant snake summons. As the Anbu battalion was tearing through the Oto forces in the center of the village, the most noteworthy person to be fighting the Oto forces was Masato, who was in his partially transformed demon state and was literally ripping the Oto nins apart, where his eyes were glowing bright crimson red, and his hands became claw-like, strength became monstrous-like as well. As he fought them he showed no mercy whatsoever to the followers of Orochimaru. As Masato and the other new Kumo Anbu forces cutting through the Oto forces, many of the Konoha, Suna and Tsuchigamo clan shinobis could not help but watch the new Kumo Anbu divisions with stunned looks. As they wiped out the Oto force with chilling ease as if they were nothing to them, many could not help but also be greatly impressed with many of the Shock, Bolt and Storm members, as their teamwork with each other was in perfect sync with one another, just as the rumors they had heard said. Damn, these guys are good, said one Chunin as he and his partner watched a pair of Storm Nins combine a water jutsu that none of them had ever seen or heard of before, with a lightning jutsu that they also never seen or heard of before, and use the combination jutsu to wipe out 2 platoons of Sonic Nins. They also saw a pair of Bolt Nins speed right through 3 squads of regular Oto Nins and cut them with expert skill. Yeah, said the other, I'm glad they are on our side or else we would be in big trouble, where his partner only nodded in agreement. It was then that a large frame shadow of a man stood over the 2 Chunin and the other group of Konoha defenders from the roof of a small house. When the 2 Chunin and the others noticed it and looked up, they saw Morino Ibiki, head of the torture and interrogation division in Anbu and one of the most feared men in all of Konoha. In case you lot haven't noticed, there's an invasion going on. Do any of you guys want to face your sweethearts tonight knowing that we left all the fighting to a foreign village, and do you also want to let New Kumo take all the glory from this battle? Shouted out Ibiki, who despite his angry look was as equally impressed with the 3 New Kumo Anbu division's fighting skills as any of the others, but did make sure not to show it or interfere with his duty to defend the village. This open question of course quickly snapped the 2 Chunins and the others out of their stupor, and they directed their efforts to repelling the invasion force. At this point, both Sofon and Yoruichi stood on a large building, which gave them a clear view of 3 of the large snake summons, deciding to take care of them. Both Sofon and Yoruichi charged up their Shunko flash cry, where Swaven's Haori and Yoruichi's orange overshirt were ripped apart, revealing their backless ninja outfits. Once both their Shunkos were fully powered up and ready, both female commanders cried out Shunko, after which a loud screeching sound was heard, which caused many shinobis on both sides to stop fighting when they heard it and looked towards Sofon and Yoruichi, while others covered their ears due to the loudness of the attack, after which a massive blast of lightning chakra was fired from them, right at 2 of the 3 giant snakes. Where once the blasts hit them there were 2 bright flashes of lights and 2 massive explosions, where once they died down all that was left of the giant snakes was their charred remains, which fell to the ground and crushed several buildings that their charred bodies landed on before puffing away. After 2 of the giant snake summonses were dealt, Sofon and Yoruichi quickly raced forward to deal with the 3rd. But before they could, Hayabusa Ru appeared in the air above the 3rd snake summons. Ru then quickly used a powerful fire jutsu in the shape of a large wheel of fire that hit the summon right on the head, which caused the snake summons to howl in pain from the attack as its whole face was burnt badly from the attack. Ru then unsheathed his katana that was on his back and charged it up with his lightning affinity to enhance his katana's stabbing power. Where he dropped down on the giant snake's head, he stabbed down hard right down on the snake summon's forehead, killing it instantly, where he then quickly ran forward and slid down the snake summon's scaly. All the while, channeling more of his lightning chakra into his katana so to enhance its cutting power, whereas he was sliding down the snake's body, he cut the snake's body in 2, right up till he reached its tail. Where when he reached it, he did a quick front somersault flip and landed right in front of Yoruichi and Sofon, who were at the end a few feet away from the end of the snake tail, which puffed away after its body fell down on some nearby buildings. End Gundam Seed Destiny OST2, Hajimari ga Ue. Show off, said Yoruichi with a slight smirk. I can assure you, Yoruichi-san, I'm nothing of the sort. Besides, you of all people cannot criticize me, given your record, spoke Ru, where if one listened carefully they would hear a slight trace of humor in his voice. This of course caused Yoruichi's smirk to grow, knowing what Ru said was true, as she did have a reputation in showing off a lot. Not too far away from them, many of the shinobis on both sides could only gap at what they saw, as they still could not believe what they had seen. Where those 3 people, each fought and killed 3 massive snake summons by themselves without summoning creatures of equal size or strength, and did it with terrifying ease. Those guys are monsters, stated an Oto Nin, where he was beginning to think that he and his fellow Oto Nins should get out of here while they still could, as they stood no chance against shinobis as powerful as Yoruichi, Sofon and Ru. Also many of the Konoha defenders who heard the Oto Nin's statement, could not help but agree with him, while at the same time, thanking whatever deity they could think of, that New Kumo was on their side. After defeating the giant snake summons Yoruichi, Ru and Sofon split up to take on more Oto shinobis. Soon after splitting up, Yoruichi came across an unconscious and badly wounded Tenten and the dead body of Udo Jin near her. To think that a girl this young was able to match blades and kill someone as skilled and deadly as well as experience in kenjutsu fighting as Jin, this one definitely got a lot of talent and promise, thought Yoruichi as she began to work on healing Tenten. Although she was no medic, Yoruichi had plenty of experience and practice in treating wounds like this, from the many years of fighting both on missions and in the Civil War. Soon after healing Tenten's wounds, Yoruichi pumped in some chakra into Tenten to waken her up. When Tenten woke up, she quickly sat up, although when he did she felt dizzy due to the blood loss she suffered from her wounds. Easy now, you're okay, said Yoruichi as she held the girls back to keep her from falling back on the ground. Here, take this, said Yoruichi as handed Tenten a pill. It's a blood pill and it will restore the blood you lost from your battle with Jin of there, said Yoruichi as she pointed to Jin's body behind them. Once Tenten took the pill she started to regain focus of herself, where when she did she finally realized who had saved her and who she had been talking to. You're Shihoin Yoruichi, the Kasoku Aijin, speed mistress, of New Kumo, but what are you doing here? New Kumo isn't involved in our war, said Tenten with some shock and surprise. As she made it a point to know all the most well-known or powerful kunoichi in the elemental continent. At Tenten's surprise, Yoruichi just smiled. Good, you know my name, so that saves introductions, as I know who you are, Mikumo Tenten, or should I say Chief Commander of the Konoha's Anbu Assassination Division, better known as Okami Ken no Konoha. As I have heard a lot about you and considering how you killed someone as skilled and as dangerous as the Kurogasa, the Black Hat, I can see that the stories were true. As for why my village is involved in this war of yours, it's a bit complicated to explain, but to put it simply, we share the same enemy for now, hence we're giving you a hand to take them out. At hearing this, Tenten could not help but blush slightly as Yoruichi praised of her, as Yoruichi was one of the most famous and said to be strongest kunoichis in the shinobi world. Where only kunoikis like Tsunade or Uzumaki Kushina aka the Konoha no Shinku Akari, Konoha's Crimson Fury, 14, could surpass her in reputation and power. But before she could respond to Yoruichi's praise, she suddenly heard a familiar voice crying out her name. Tenten-chan. When Tenten turned to look, she saw her old sensei Guy and her old teammate Lee jumping over to her. Tenten-chan, are you okay? Asked her concernedly as he was worried for his old teammate's safety and well-being. I finally, thanks to Yoruichi Dono, said Tenten, not seeing the slight twitch on from Yoruichi's eyebrow, as she was unaware at how Yoruichi hated being called Dono or Sama. Upon fully realizing who was with Tenten, Guy quickly shouted with joy, Yosh, Yoruichi-san, my youthful friend, it is so good to see you, cried a happy Guy, where he quickly grabbed Yoruichi in a bone-breaking bear hug. It's good to see you too, Guy, but if you don't mind, could you let me go, before you break my back, spoke Yoruichi painfully as she felt her spine was about to break from Guy's hug. Fortunately for Yoruichi, Guy quickly let go and apologized to her, where she told him it was all right and that no harm was done. Yoruichi was of course happy to see Guy as well, as despite Guy's hideous taste in clothes, his freaky personality, not to mention his freaky bushy eyebrows and the fact that he was a Konoha ninja, she did respect Guy greatly as both a shinobi and a fighter and considered him a friend. Yosh. It is an honor to meet you, Yoruichi-sama, and thank you for helping my teammate Tenten-chan, spoke Lee, not noticing the twitch on Yoruichi's face at being called Sama. It was nothing, I was glad to help, said Yoruichi with a small smile, as she also could not help both wonder, like many people who first meet Lee and Guy, if they were father and son. Although she knew they weren't, she could not help but wonder, due to the resemblance between them in both appearance and personality, as she had heard all about Lee from the Raikage. Yoruichi was of course quickly knocked out of her train of thought when Lee started to shout out excitedly, Yosh. We also saw you and your youthful comrades battle against the unyouthful snakes that were destroying our village and how you destroyed them by yourselves. The flames of youth truly burn brightly in you, Yosh. Upon hearing this, Tenten quickly got Lee to tell her exactly what happened, whereupon hearing this, Tenten was very down at missing Yoruichi's legendary Shunko, as she had heard rumors about it. But soon enough the two shinobis and two kunoikis became serious and decided to head back into the fight. At the center right of the village, fighting near the academy, Aruka and Anko were fighting back to back against some of the last remaining Curse Seal warriors that managed to survive up to this point. But during the fight, one of the last two Curse Seal warriors got a lucky hit on Aruka's side and slashed him with its tail. When Anko saw this at the corner of her eye, she cried out to Iruka, fearing for her husband's life. This of course distracted Anko from her fight with the other Cursed Seal warrior that she had been fighting, where the Cursed Seal warrior took advantage of it and punched Anko in the side of her face with its fist, sending her flying several feet away into the outside wall of the academy. With both Iruka and Anko down, both the crew's seal warriors pounced on them to finish them off, but before they could finish them off, they were both intercepted by two unknown people. The one who was attacking Iruka was intercepted by a young man with black spiky hair and had metal piercings on his ears and above his left eye. He also had dark brown eyes. He wore a light brown jacket and jeans and a blood red shirt underneath his jacket. He also had black boots on and carried a heavy metal skull chain around his neck and a metal chain around his waist. He then quickly took out his chain and used his chakra to manipulate it into a long spear, where just as the Cursed Seal warrior was about to pounce and kill the young man and Iruka, the young man swung his spear and cut the Cursed Seal warrior in two, where its bottom half fell to the ground in front of them, while the upper half flew over them and flew a few feet away behind them. The second Cursed Seal warrior that was attacking Anko was intercepted, a young medium-tall woman with long dark brown hair that fell below her waist and was tied at the end in a distinctive dolphin tail split. She had a very attractive face that gave her an almost down-to-earth look, where she didn't need any makeup to highlight her beauty, as she had what one would call the homespun allure, or what others might cheerfully refer to as the girl next door look. She wore shorts with a black ribbon on each leg instead of regular shorts, and she has a cape tied onto the shorts in a bow in the center. She wore a sleeveless white shirt underneath a sleeveless black vest with a zipper to cover her impressive D-cup breasts. She also wore a pair of fighting leather gloves. The woman quickly appeared to the left side of the Cursed Seal warrior and delivered a powerful right hook, with her right hand that was surrounded by lightning, to the creature that sent it flying over 100 feet away and through the outer and inner walls of the school, showing that the girl possessed strength and power, which could easily rival Tsunde's and Sakura's superhuman strength. Which the creature dealt with. The girl helped Anko back on her feet, while the man helped carry the wounded Iruka, where Anko quickly went over to see if he was okay. Once Anko saw that Iruka was not in any serious danger, both she and her husband introduced themselves and thanked the two. "Thank for saving us there, as we would have been goners there if you hadn't saved us there," spoke Anko. "Indeed, we owe you both our lives, thank you," spoke the wounded Iruka. "It was our pleasure," replied the girl. "I guessing that you guys are from New Kumo," spoke Anko, as she, like everyone else, had seen the New Kumo airships arrive and attack the anti-Konoha coalition forces. "Yay, we are. My name is Tatara Hamrio, clan head of the Tatara clan, and this is Takara, or as we call her, Takara no Raikage, Takara of the Thunder Fist," spoke Hamrio. "I can guess why," spoke Anko. "I'm guessing that you use some kind of lightning technique to enhance your strength to do things like what you did to that Cursed Seal warrior." Takara just nodded, as there was no point in hiding it, and confirmed what Anko said. "Will you to be a light if we leave you where you can make your own way to get medical help, as it be best if we get back to the battle and help out," spoke Hamrio. "Yes, we will be fine, thank you," replied Iruka. "You should head to your village's hospital and get help there," suggested Takara. "Can't, the hospital would be too dangerous, as the Otonins were swarming in it not too long ago. Besides, the staff and everything was moved to the Hokage Monument shelters, as the hospital was too exposed," spoke Anko. "I don't believe that would be the case now, as our own forces should have control of it by now and it should be secured, and our combat medics should be treating the wounded there now," spoke Takara. "Right then, thanks, we head there now," replied Anko, before she and Iruka headed off there, while Takara and Hamrio went off to get back into the battle. Konoha Hospital. When the Otonins made their surprise attack from underground, they took over several large buildings like the Konoha Hospital and made them into operation bases for their forces. The Konoha Hospital had been abandoned before the battle began, as it was too vulnerable to enemy attack. But for the Oto army it made a perfect base of operation, as it gave a clear view of the village and was large enough to hold many shinobis. Unfortunately though, when the new Kumo forces made their surprise attack and the Anbu battalion were dropped down into the center of the village, the hospital was quickly taken over by the new Kumo forces. As the Oto ninjas stationed there were no match for several squads of shock and bolt shinobis, where they were either killed or captured. After capturing the hospital and securing it, Unohana Ritsu, better known as the Chiyu no Megami, goddess of healing, took command of it. As the battle raged on out in the village, more and more wounded came in, where they were brought in by either the new Kumo shinobis or the shinobis of Suna and Konoha. As the wounded were brought in, Ritsu and her medics did not just treat their own forces or those belonging to Konoha and its allies, she and her medics also treated the shinobis of the opposing side. They were even helped by Konoha and Suna medics, who had been cut off and couldn't get back to the emergency hospital in the shelters of the Hokage monument. Although when they were told that they would also have to treat enemy shinobis, many of the medics had some objects to it. Although the matter was quickly settled when Ritsu had conversed with them and reminded them of their Hippocratic oaths to help and heal all those in need. When Ritsu was finished speaking to them, the medics were more than cooperative and willing to help, although after that talk with Ritsu the medics were all shaking like leaves and white as ghosts, as if they had just finished speaking to the Shinigami himself. On board the Raikage's personal airship, currently sitting in his command chair, the Raikage was listening to Lu Xun report on the battle, where despite catching the enemy by surprise and outmaneuvering them, as well as taking heavy losses, the enemy forces were still holding and putting up a strong fight, but even still were slowly being worn down. After Lu Xun had finished his report, the Raikage got out of his seat and turned to speak to Lu Xun. Lu Xun, you are now in command of the fleet. Have them continue firing down on the enemy forces and weaken their lines so that our forces and the Konoha forces along with their allies can break them. Also have the Skyhawk ninjas do the same, spoke the Raikage. But Raikage-sama, where are you going? Spoke Lu Xun just as the Raikage was about to walk out the bridge. The Raikage stopped and then turned his head slightly to face Lu Xun and answered simply, the best way to kill a snake is to chop off its head, after which he walked out. With Yamato currently kneeling on one knee with his left arm bleeding badly and hanging loosely as well as having several cuts on his face and his clothes baldly torn up, was Yamato aka Tenzo. For the duration of most of the battle Tenzo had been battling against Gurren. The battle though had been entirely one-sided, where no matter what he did, Gurren always defeated him. As she had stated, his water, wood and earth ninjutsu were worthless against her as her Shoten crystallize his attacks. She was also more than a match to him in taijutsu and in weapons fighting. When he used his jutsus for defensive purposes, her Shoten jutsus would easily pierce them. But even being so heavily outmatched, he still fought on like a true shinobi and gave Gurren a tough enough fight, but now he was at the end of his ropes, as he knew he couldn't last much longer fighting against her. Well, now I must admit you put up better fight than I thought, and you lasted far longer than I ever thought possible. I can see now why Orochimaru-sama wants me to capture you and bring you back to Otogaku, spoke Gurren. But still in the end I won and you lost, so why don't you make things easier for yourself and just give up now and come peaceful? Pant, 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 never, pant, pant, said a tired Yamato. HHHUUUUHHHH, I really hate stubborn guys like you. You always have to do things the hard way and make things difficult, but I tried and it was your choice, so I end this here and now, said Gurren, where she then charged forward at Yamato with her Susho too. Yamato tried to get up and move, but he knew he could not move out of the way in time to avoid Gurren's attack. Just when Gurren was about to finish the fight, her shinobi senses suddenly kicked in, telling her to move now. At that moment Suafon appeared directly behind her and stabbed Gurren in the back with her gauntlet, but as soon as she had stabbed Gurren in the back, Gurren turned into shards of crystal. Susho Bunshin no Jutsu, Jade Crystal Clone Technique. She must have switched herself with a clone at the last second, thought Suafon with a slight frown. Impressive, not many people have ever dodged one of the attacks like that, spoke Suafon, while keeping her eyes alert and ready for any kind of sneak attack. Thank you, spoke Gurren as she came out from behind a crumpling wall. Your stealth abilities are equally impressive, as I didn't even sense you until the very last second. Although I have to say it wasn't very sporting of you to come at me like that from behind and try and stab me in the back. Stabbing a person in the back is the safest and surest way to kill an enemy, replied Suafon without any emotion. True, but it's not exactly playing fair, said Gurren with an amused smirk. Shinobis don't fight fair, we fight to win, replied Suafon again with no emotion, as she gazed Gurren with a calculating look. So you must be from New Kumo, spoke Gurren as during her fight with Yamato she had seen the New Kumo airships arrive and fire down on their forces. Judging your appearance you must be Suafon, better known as Kumo no Suzumbaki, the Hornet of Cloud, captain of New Kumo's shock division. And you're one of Orochimaru's chief lieutenants, Gurren the Shoten user, replied Suafon neutrally. Ah, so you've heard of me, answered Gurren. I make it a point to know any potential threats to New Kumo or the Heavenly Alliance, said Suafon. As the two kunoikis stared each other down, there was a sudden loud explosion coming from where Tsunade, Jiraiya and Gaara were fighting Orochimaru and his allies. At seeing this, Gurren smirked. It seems that Orochimaru-sama has finished playing with the Hokage and the others and is about ready to finish them off, and when they fall so will Konoha and Orochimaru-sama will have won. The Hokage, spoke a worried Yamato. While Suafon didn't even respond the slightest to the news, and continued to carefully watch Gurren, soon enough though Suafon glanced slightly to Yamato who was still kneeling on his one knee. You Konoha ninja, can you stand up and walk, spoke Suafon. At first Yamato did not respond, as he was still looking at where the explosion came from, but quickly paid attention to Suafon. Yes I can, he replied. Then get out of here and go help your Hokage if you can, I will handle her, said Suafon. You're sure she quite dangerous and shush, said Yamato, but was interrupted by Suafon before he could finish. I told you to get out of here, you just get in my way, so go somewhere you might actually be of some use, said Suafon coldly with some anger. At this Yamato just nodded, got up and started to run towards where the Hokage and the others were fighting. Where do you think you're going? Cried Gurren, and she ran at Yamato to stop him from getting away, but before she could reach him, Suafon appeared in midair in front of her and kicked her right in the face, sending her flying several feet away from her. Your opponent is me, so I suggest you forget about that worthless Konoha trash and focus on fighting me, unless you want to die, said Suafon in a cold and deadly tone. At this Gurren picked herself up, and spat out some blood from her mouth. You're right, besides I can get him later, once I've killed you, said Gurren as she reformed her Susho too. The two kunoikis then each went into their own fighting stance and stared at one another for a minute or so before they both charged forward and attacked. With Sakura was currently on both her knees, panting heavily, as during her fight with Kabuto, he had been able to hit her with his Chakra no Mesu in her chest to disrupt her breathing. In the beginning of the fight between the two of them, they had traded blows against one another using Chakra no Mesu. But after seeing that she was getting no real headway against Kabuto like this, as they were both too evenly skilled in it, Sakura switched from using Chakra no Mesu to using her superhuman strength, hoping to use it to her advantage and defeat Kabuto. Unfortunately though, that had been a mistake on her part, as Kabuto had experience in fighting against someone with superhuman strength, as he had fought Tsunade, back when he and Orochimaru tried to get her to heal his hands after his battle against the Sandaime during the first invasion of Konoha, with Suna. Hence Kabuto knew what to do to beat Sakura, as he knew that the best way to beat Sakura was to move quickly and not to stay in one place for too long and to stop as little as possible. It also helped that Sakura basically used the same kind of fighting style as Tsunade used, where she used her monstrous strength to drive back and overpower her enemy. Hence from his past experience fighting Tsunade, he knew how Sakura would react and would move. The only real problem he had with her was that Sakura was a good bit faster than Tsunade was due to her being younger. Also as well was that Sakura had created some of her own fighting moves, which he wasn't able to predict or expected, but it still wasn't anything he couldn't handle. For the most part of the fight Kabuto dodged and avoided Sakura punches and kicks, where whenever he saw an opening he took it and hit Sakura with his Chakra no Mesu to slow her down and wear her out. Eventually though, after using so much chakra from using her superhuman strength, along with fighting for so long against Kabuto as well as from the damage Kabuto did with his Chakra no Mesu on her body, Sakura was getting exhausted, which was only made worse when her breathing was disrupted by a lucky hit Kabuto got when he hit her chest. After a few more minutes of fighting or dodging in Kabuto's part, Sakura was no longer able to use her superhuman strength as she didn't have enough chakra to keep using it for much longer. When Kabuto saw a wore-out Sakura fall to her knees to catch her breath, he knew he had this fight just about won. Well now Sakura-chan, that was quite the entertaining fight, but in the end you're no match for me. You might have stood a chance at beating me, had you not relied so much on that monstrous strength of yours and fought me differently. But still in the end you lost and I've won, as I have more experience than you did, and that is what usually counts in a fight, spoke Kabuto with a cocky smirk. We'll see about that, cried Sakura as she drew her tanto out and charged at Kabuto with it, but due to being so tired from fighting him she was not able to move as fast as she usually could, where Kabuto easily saw her coming. Where he easily ducked under her tanto swing and then slammed both his Chakra no Mesu at Sakura's chest, pushing her back and causing her to spit out blood and fall backwards to the ground. When Sakura fell to the ground, Kabuto then deactivated his Chakura no Mesu and took out his curved kunai and prepared to finish the job. Goodbye Sakura-chan, send my regards to Naruto-kun in the next life, said Kabuto as he held her down by grabbing the lower part of her neck, where he then went to cut the upper part of Sakura's neck open. But just as he was about to slice Sakura's neck open, a sudden gleaming flash was seen and the blade of a katana slashed at Kabuto's head, who was able to narrowly avoid having the upper half of his head being cut off by using shunshin, where he then reappeared several feet away from where he was. When Sakura realized that she was still alive, she looked up to see who her savior was. When she looked, she saw none other than Akechi Mitsuhide with his katana in hand and his takugan ablaze, staring calmly but deadly at Kabuto. Seeing that Mitsuhide was now going to fight Kabuto, Sakura decided to take the chance to heal herself from the damage Kabuto inflicted on her, where she began to heal herself. HMPH. I missed, spoke Mitsuhide, with what sounded like slight annoyance at not killing Kabuto. I'm afraid you're mistaken, you didn't miss, replied Kabuto as she raised his head up to show that Mitsuhide and made a cut on the left side of Kabuto's head. I was aiming to cut off your head, I do not count a scratch like that as a hit, replied Mitsuhide. But still it is impressive that you avoided my katana and just have that scratch, you should be proud. Not many people can claim that they made me miss my intended target. Oh, spoke Kabuto suddenly when he got a better look at Mitsuhide, white outfit and the takugan. You must be the infamous Akechi Mitsuhide, the famed aka Shirotakai no Kiri, Mist's White Death aka Kumo no Shirotaka, White Falcon of Cloud. I must say it's quite a rare honor to meet you as your reputation precedes you, spoke Kabuto, where he looked directly at Mitsuhide's takugan, and those eyes must be the famed takugan of the Akechi clan, a dojutsu that is rumored to be able rival if not match, or even surpass the Hyuga clan's Byakugan. It's a shame my master Orochimaru-sama is not here to meet you in person. I'm certain he would greatly enjoy meeting you and seeing your eyes for himself. Indeed it is a shame, as if he were here I would have the honor of having his head, but I believe I can be satisfied with having your head. Yakushi Kabuto, right-hand man to Orochimaru, spoke Mitsuhide. Oh, I flattered you know of me, replied Kabuto pleasant-like as if he was having a pleasant afternoon conversation with Mitsuhide. Where as soon as he said this, there was a sudden loud explosion and a large cloud of smoke could be seen not far away. The three people knew that was where Orochimaru and his allies were fighting, Tsunade, Jiraiya and Gaara. Sensing Sakura's worry for her sensei Hokage and not taking his eyes off Kabuto, Mitsuhide spoke to Sakura. Girl, go and help your Hokage if you want, I will handle this. Not needing to be told twice, Sakura quickly got up, said her thanks to Mitsuhide and then ran off to try and help her sensei Hokage. Kabuto didn't pay much attention to Sakura when she ran off as he knew that he would need to focus on his battle Mitsuhide 100%. As one mistake when fighting against someone like Akechi Mitsuhide would result in your instant death, as the man was as deadly and as dangerous as they came. You do know that by the time she gets there the Hokage and the others will be already dead, as they stand no chance of defeating the combined power of Orochimaru-sama, the Mizukage, the Tsuchikage and the others, spoke Kabuto with small smile and with confidence at his master's victory. I would be more focused on this fight than your masters, if I were you. Besides, this battle has yet to truly begin, replied Mitsuhide with a confident-looking smirk on his face, which made Kabuto frown at what the former Kyonin meant by that. So shall we begin? Asked Mitsuhide. Yes, let's, replied Kabuto, where both men charged at one another and engaged in mortal combat with one another. Temari and the Suna teams, as Temari was facing against several Kiri Shark members on the water of the spring pool directly below the Hokage monument, with the rest of her platoon who were also fighting other groups of Shark Nins and the 4 of the Sea Serpents in other parts of the pool. While the Suna platoons and Konoha ninjas fought the other Shark Nins on the shore of the pool. As she stood in front of the Shark Nin group, she made a few side glances around her, to see how the battle was going on. From the shore she could see her brother Kankuro using Shirohige, Juki Chikamatsu no Shu, White Secret Technique, 10 puppet collection of Chikamatsu against 2 squads of Shark Nins. Kankuro puppetry skill had improved greatly ever since the event of Gaara's kidnapping by the Akatsuki. After Gaara had been saved by the mysterious duo that had killed Akasuna no Sasori, Sasori of the Red Sand, and drove off his partner Deodara, Kankuro went to Chiyo for training to become a stronger puppet master. After several years of hard training, Kankuro became a true master puppeteer, where like Chio he could control 10 puppets at once with each finger controlling one, which Chio then presented him the Shirohige, Juki Chikamatsu no Shu, stating that they should only be welded by a true puppet master. Not far from Kankuro was also their former sensei Baki, who was using his superior wind jutsu skill to kill a shark nin. Also as well a few feet away from Kankuro was her sister-in-law Matsuri, Gaara's wife, who was using her Yohyo rope dart to subdue or knock out her opponents and then use a steel wire and reel with a kunai tied to it and throw it at her opponent, where she would channel her chakra into the wire and kunai and control its movements as it flew through the air so that she could move it, if her opponent moved. Matsuri had been Gaara's one and only student, where over time the two became close with one another as Matsuri did not fear Gaara. A year or two after becoming Kazekage, Gaara and her started to date, where after 3 years of dating they eventually married and were quite happy. Seeing that her sensei, brother and sister-in-law were okay, Temari focused back on her battle with the shark nins, where just as she was about to attack, one of the 5 giant sea serpents that came with the shark nins appeared out from under the water. As soon as the sea serpent appeared, it fired a jet stream of water at her at high speed that she only narrowly avoided, although she had received a slight cut on her right arm from the jet of water when she dodged. When she landed back on the surface of the water, several of the Kiri nins fired some water jutsu at her, dodging them easily enough. Temari quickly bit her thumb and wiped some of her blood on her giant folding fan and summoned her personal summons Kamatari, where she then used her Kuchiyos, Kirikiri Might summoning, quick beheading dance to whip up a powerful tempest, where Kamatari rode the wind, slashing through everything that he touched, including the shark nins she had been fighting against, who were cut to pieces by Temari's wind and attack, and the sea serpent which had its head cut off by Kamatari's sickle. As soon as she had dealt with the sea serpent and the shark nins, Kamatari puffed away, as his job was done. But as soon as he did, Temari had to quickly dodge another one of the giant sea serpents, who came at her from behind and tried to eat her, but missed and crashed into the water, when Temari jumped away. Before Temari could make any kind of counterattack, she suddenly heard a voice cry out, Rantan, Riza Sakasu, storm release, encouraging crushing chain tormenting principle. After which several bright beams of electricity appeared from behind her and shot at the giant sea serpent summons and killed the creature instantly. When Temari turned around, she saw 5 new Kumo shinobi standing not too far from behind her. The one who fired the attack that killed the giant sea serpent was a tall dark-skinned tone man with a slightly bulbous nose, and a lazy look in his eyes. He had white hair in a shaggy hairstyle. He had high-collared sleeveless uniform and one strap over one shoulder flak jacket of a Kumogakur Jonin. He also had the characters for water and lightning tattooed on his right and left shoulders respectively, also carried on his back a large, cleaver-like blade. Next to him was a young man with short blonde hair and dark eyes, wearing a sleeveless black shirt with a one strap over one shoulder white flak jacket of a Kumogakur Jonin over it. He also wore black elbow-length arm guards, and red and white Kumogakur shin guards. Behind the 2 men were 3 slightly younger Kumo shinobi, 2 of which were kunoikis while the third was a male. The other remaining male was a young, dark-skinned shinobi with short, spiky, white hair with a thoughtful expression, as though in deep thought and sucking on a lollipop. He wore a dark, dull outfit consisting of an overlong shirt with a hood, with red bandage hand guards, Kumogakur shin guards and forehead protector on a black cloth. He has also had a long sword on his back on his flak jacket. The 2 kunoiki in the group looked to be as young as the younger male in the group. One of the kunoiki was a dark-skinned kunoiki with long red hair and amber eyes. She wore a long short-sleeved dress as her ninja attire, complete with the Kumogakur flak jacket, 2 simple earrings, boots with a white bottom, and wears her forehead protector like a bandana. She also carried a long katana on her back like the younger male in the group. The other kunoiki was a tall woman, with short blonde hair, that was shorter in the back and longer in the front. She blue eyes and had a body comparable to that of the Hokage Tsunade. She wore a very low-cut outfit with mesh armor underneath, a short skirt and red hand guards, high boots and what appears to be a modified Kumogakur flak jacket that covered her stomach only, similar to a girdle. She also had what appeared to be a sword strapped horizontally to her lower back. "You okay, there miss?" asked the shaggy white-haired shinobi. "Yeah, I fine, thanks, although I could have handled it myself," spoke Temari. "Then I apologize, it just looked that you needed a bit of help," replied the shaggy-haired man. It's fine, you're all from New Kumo, right? Asked Temari, although she already knew the answer to it, as she saw their headbands and like everyone else saw the New Kumo airships flying in the air firing down at the Oto forces along with their allies. We are, my name is Darui and this is my partner C, spoke the shaggy-haired man named Darui, and these are our other comrades Samui, Omoi and Karui, we've come here to help you guys. At this Temari nodded her head in acceptance, for although she was a proud kunoichi, she was not proud enough to refuse help when offered, especially when they needed it. But as soon as she accepted their help, a massive explosion erupted, and came from the area, where Temari and the others knew, where her brother, along with the Hokage and Jiraiya were battling Orochimaru and the other leaders of the enemy coalition. Gaara, thought Temari with concern as after seeing that explosion her gut was telling her that her younger brother was in trouble, and she usually listened to her gut. I think you should go there and help, as by the looks of that, your brother could do with some, we can handle things here, spoke the blonde-haired Kumo nin named C. Temari nodded her head in thanks to the new Kumo nins and headed off to where Gaara was fighting, where she was joined by Kankuro and Matsuri, who also saw what had happened and were worried about Gaara as well. Baki had stayed behind to command the Suna forces there and help in driving back the Shark Nins and the Sea Serpent summons. In the center of the village currently in the center of the village the combined forces of the Suna, Konoha forces in the center of Konoha along with the newly arrived new Kumo Anbu battalion made up of Shock, Bolt, and Storm shinobis were massacring the Oto forces. Also among the new Kumo Anbu battalion, was the Raikage's bodyguards, Okatsu, Yugito, Fu and Killer Bee as well as the famed Namoriru sleeping dragon Zhuge Liang. As Okatsu was fighting several Sonic Nins, she saw a massive shadow looming over her. When she turned to look she saw one of the last 3 remaining snake summons ready to strike and eat her. Not wanting to be the snake summon's next meal, Okatsu quickly jumped away onto a nearby building and avoided being eaten. Unfortunately though the 4 Sonic Nins she had been fighting weren't so lucky, as the snake had swallowed them whole. Deciding to deal with the giant snakes, Okatsu bit her finger and did a few quick hand seals and then slammed it onto the rooftop and cried out Kuchio's no Jutsu. Where a large puff of smoke appeared, after which a giant grey salamander appeared on the now crushed building that Okatsu had been standing on. When the surrounding shinobis on both sides, minus the new Kumo Nins, saw what Okatsu had summoned they could not believe their eyes. Since she had summoned trademarked summons of the legendary shinobi, Sanshuo no Hanzo the salamander, who had been strong enough to fight and overpower all 3 Sannin in battle in their youths, and who later gave them their titles Sannin. It was especially surprising to them considering that everyone now knew that Hanzo and his entire family had been killed by the new leader of a megacorp Hidden Rain. After a secret civil war in the village, where the new leader of a megacorp whose identity still remains unknown due to the village isolation policy still remaining in effect, had single-handedly killed Hanzo, his family, and his retainers, and then conducted a systematic genocide of anybody even remotely associated with Hanzo. Hence why the shinobis still found it hard to believe what they were seeing, as most thought it only now existed in legend and story, with Hanzo and his family being killed. I don't believe my eyes, said Yamashiro Alba. The salamander summons, but how, muttered Namiashi Rado. Damn, said Shiranui Genma as he dropped the Senbon needle in his mouth, when he saw the summons. Upon summoning the giant Slamonada, Okatsu spoke to her summons, Tokage, turn this vile snake to ash. Very well, Kaiten, Jigoku Iki, fire style, Inferno Breath B1, spoke Tokage, where inhaled deeply and let loose a massive stream of fire, that was so hot that the surrounding shinobi that had been watching had to cover their faces from the heat with their hands and arms. As the heat of the flames from Tokage's attack were too hot, as the heat coming from the flames felt like their faces were already burning. The flames were made even stronger thanks to Okatsu enhancing them with her wind affinity, where then she did many shinobis who were near the flames had 3rd-degree burns on their hands and faces thanks to the sheer heat of the flame attack. The massive inferno quickly traveled towards the giant snake summons with seconds and hit the giant snake, where its screams of anguish and pains could be heard by the surrounding shinobis, as its body was covered in the powerful flames. After which the creature fell dead, with his flesh burnt to ash and its bones charred black after being burnt to a crisp, which soon after puffed away, back from whence it came from. Not too far away from Okatsu, Zhuge Liang was dealing with several Oto nins who foolish believed they could overwhelm the legendary Ronin ninja with the numbers. Don't be afraid, he's only one single man, cried the Oto captain as he saw his squad hesitating to attack Zhuge Liang. The surrounding Oto nins quickly began to do hand seals and prepared to fire multiple jutsus at him at once, but before they could finish, Zhuge Liang shook his head and said, "Only fools enters the cave of the beast when they knows not what lies in it first," spoke Zhuge Liang, before he swung his feather fan and said, "Futon, tenpu midet wind style, heaven's gale blows, C1. After which a spinning whirlwind vortex appeared around him, right when the Oto nins fired their individual elemental ninjutsus at him. The spinning whirlwind absorbed the fire, water, lightning, earth and wind ninjutsus and made itself stronger, after which it expanded outward and exploded, blasting the Oto nins away and through several different walls and buildings. After defeating the Oto nin, Zhuge Liang noticed the last two remaining giant snake summons heading towards him, as they had somehow gotten away from Katsuyu, Sasuke's hawk summons, Gamabunta and the other two great battle toads. Also as well behind the two giant snake summons was a battalion of Oto nins, where together they were inflicting heavy losses against the Konoha and Suna forces in the center of the village. Upon seeing this, Zhuge Liang did not panic nor did he worry, as he remained calm, where he then began to do a series of single one-handed hand seals, with speed that none of the nearby shinobis could keep up with. For every one-handed seal they saw, Zhuge Liang had done 5 more. When he finished the long set of one-handed seals, Zhuge Liang brought his 2 front fingers to his lips and said, "Kaiten, Yama Kaji Tsunami, Fire Style, Wildfire Tsunami, D1. After which a giant wave of intense fire came from Zhuge Liang's mouth and grew in size until it was as tall the 2 snake summons. Once the giant fire wave was at full size and Zhuge Liang sent it forward, he then channeled his wind chakra into his feather fan and swung it, making the giant fire wave even strong and larger. The now enhanced fire tsunami quickly traveled towards the 2 snake summons and quickly enveloped the 2 summonses and the battalion of Oto nins behind them, who couldn't get away as the wave was too large to avoid. Where the summons and the Oto nins were burnt alive, whereas the fire died a few minutes later, all that remained of them was their ashes. When the Konoha, Suna and Tsuchigamo clan shinobi saw this, many were unnerved at what they saw, as they still could not believe how easily Zhuge Liang wiped out the 2 giant snake summons and the battalion of Oto nins all with a single fire ninjutsu. Many also began to see how Zhuge Liang became a legendary Ronin ninja and why he was called the Namori Sleeping Dragon. Also fighting near where Zhuge Liang were the Raikage 3 other bodyguards Fu, Killer Bee and Yugito, who were working together to fight the Oto nins, and were each using their own individually fighting skills to wipe out the Oto forces. Together the 3 Jinchurikis were an unstoppable team, where they literally tore through the Oto shinobis. As the battle raged on, there was a sudden loud explosion coming from where the leaders of both sides were fighting. Seeing this, Guy, Lee and Tenten along with Shizune, who was looking over Tenten wounds to make sure she was alright, raced for where Tsunade and the others were fighting, fearing the worst for their female leader. Also like the others, Hinata, Konohamaru, and Kakashi, who saw the explosion, raced to go where they saw and heard the explosion come from and to go help the Hokage and the others, as they knew that she and the other were in trouble, where Hiashi, Neji, Hanabi and Kureni followed after Hinata from the western side of the village. While Konohamaru, Shikamaru, Ino and Choji raced from the southern side of the village and Kakashi, accompanied by Kiba, Shino, Sai and Sasuke, raced from the eastern side of the village. With Tsunade, Jiraiya and Gaara, despite being severely weakened by the poison and handicapped by its other effects, Tsunade, Gaara and Jiraiya fought well and were somehow able to hold Orochimaru and the others back. But eventually they were overpowered, where thanks to a combination attack by Ryoku and Shinran, where Ryoku fired an earth jutsu that fired large boulders at the Tsunade and the other. But as they dodged the rocks, they blew up as Shinran had planted exploding notes on the boulders, so that when they dodged, Shinran would activate the notes, and have them explode at once, sending the trio flying back to the far end of the roof. Due to the explosion, they received several wounds from the debris that embedded into them, and combined with the poison, Tsunade, Gaara nor Jiraiya weren't in any shape to keep fighting and could barely move as they knelt on rooftop. Ku. Well, it appears that this is the end, Tsunade and Jiraiya, said Orochimaru with a sickening smirk on his face. Do you have any last words to say before you meet Sensei and young Naruto-kun? Even if you kill us, Orochimaru, Konoha will never fall, you will never win. For the shinobis of Konoha fight to their dying breath, spoke Tsunade defiantly as she glared at her former comrade. Pretty words, but regardless to what you say, Konoha will fall today, replied Orochimaru, with sinister smile. Enough of this dribble Orochimaru, let's kill them and be done with it, spoke Ryoku as he had no patience for useless and idle chatter. Agreed, spoke Shinran, we haven't time for this as we need to finish this now and get back to our forces and help deal with New Kumo before we are completely overwhelmed and destroyed. Very well then, let us finish this, spoke Orochimaru as he and the other each prepared to fire individual ninjutsu together. Knowing that in the shape they're in Tsunade, Gaara and Jiraiya knew that they would not be able to avoid being killed by the attacks that they were going to be hit with, and so they prepared themselves for what was going to happen next. Looks like I'm following the Hokage tradition in dying in battle to defend the village, but at least I will now get to see my parents, my grandparents, Uncle Tobirama, Dan, Nawaki and Naruto in the next life, thought Tsunade as she prepared herself. So this is it, huh? I guess there's worse ways I could go, and going down fighting in battle, is its pretty damn honorable way die. Maybe I will see Minato and Naruto and hopeful I can get them both to forgive me for being a lousy godfather to Naruto, that is if Kushina doesn't beat me to a point that I can't apologize first for not being there for Naruto, thought Jiraiya, with a small sad smirk as he too prepared himself for what would happen. It seems this is the end. I am sorry that I could not keep my promise to come back safely to you, Matsuri-chan. Hopefully you, Temari Oni-san and Kankuro Ototo-san will return safely to Suna, thought Gaara. He also prepared himself. It was in the moment that Orochimaru and the others finished preparing the jutsus and fired each of their ninjutsu at the trio together. Where at the same time as well each of the individual groups that had heard and seen the explosion earlier and came to help, arrived together on the rooftop of a building next to the one that the leaders of the two sides were battling on, which was directly behind Gaara, Tsunade and Jiraiya. When they arrived they were just in time to see Orochimaru and his allies firing the jutsus at the defenseless Gaara, Tsunade and Jiraiya. Gaara, cried Temari, Kankuro and Matsuri together. Tsunade-sensei, cried Sakura, Tenten, Ino, Shizune and Hinata together. Jiraiya-sama, cried Kakashi and Yamato. All the group could do was watch helplessly as the 5 separate attacks hit Tsunade and the others, where there was a massive explosion when they hit. As the smoke from the explosion of the 5 elemental ninjutsus hitting Tsunade, Gaara and Jiraiya covered his view of their bodies. Orochimaru could not help but smile sinisterly at his victory and in killing his former teammates and Gaara. But when the smoke cleared, instead of seeing the destroyed section of the rooftop and the bodies of Jiraiya, Tsunade and Gaara, or at the very least pieces of their bodies from being blown up. Much to his shock and the shock of his allies, he instead saw a large barrier made out of lightning, with a confused Gaara, Tsunade and Jiraiya behind it, clearly indicating that the lightning barrier had protected them from harm. Also, by looking at their faces, Orochimaru could clearly see that they had not created the lightning wall, indicating that someone else had. He knew it wasn't Kakashi or the others who had just arrived, as they were just as equally surprised to see the lightning wall as everyone else, not to mention they did not have the time to create the lightning wall. It was as Orochimaru was trying to figure out where the lightning wall had came from, that he then noticed that the sky had gotten dark as dark storm clouds now covered the sky. Also a strong wind was now blowing and lightning was now just starting to appear in the sky with sounds of thunder, yet there was no rain. Fairy Tail OST Volume 1-17 Fairy Lore. But just as he was wondering this as well, he felt a powerful surge of power coming from above him. When he along with everyone else felt this and looked up, they then realized who had created the lightning barrier and saved Tsunade, Jiraiya and Gaara. For descending down from the sky surrounded by lightning and landing gently onto the rooftop like some kind of deity descending down from the heavens was the Raikage. Where he now stood in front of Gaara, Jiraiya, Tsunade and the lightning barrier he had created to protect them, with his back to them, and was still surrounded by lightning which could be seen sparking all around his body for a minute or so until it finally died down. The Raikage was the exact thought that went through everyone's head in that moment as they looked at him in surprise. As they looked at the Raikage, everyone could see a powerful blue aura surrounded him, which emanated pure and unyielding raw power from him, as it was so strong that it made the hairs of everyone around him standing on ends. Also as well they saw his eyes were glowing bright blue, where his eyes were actually emanating lightning from them, which made his appearance all the more intimidating. After landing on the rooftop, the Raikage grabbed onto his yellow cage robes and threw him off, revealing a blue long coat with 3 tails and a white lightning-like pattern on the right side of the coat, as well as black lightning blots at the edges of the coat and at kanji for storm on the back of it in black. He also wore a short-sleeved black t-shirt with Anbu chestplate and black fingerless gloves and a Kumo headband wrapped around his right arm. He also had black jeans and boots with steel tips and had a black strap around his shoulders. The strap held what looked to be a sword which was covered in cloth that was on his back in its place. But he did retain his cage height and his mask that covered his lower face. After getting over their shock of the Raikage's appearance, Temari, Hinata and the others quickly jumped over to Jiraiya, Gaara and Tsunade to see if they were okay. "Gaara, are you okay?" cried Temari as she helped her younger brother up with Kankuro's and Matsuri help. "Yes, I'm fine," grunted Gaara, as he was still gazing at the Raikage, as this was his first time seeing him, and could not help but keep staring at him as the power he was feeling coming from the Raikage was unlike anything he felt before. "Tsunade-sensei," cried Hinata, Shizune and Sakura together, as they checked their sensei for injuries, while Tenten and Ino helped her up. "We're okay, but tell me, do any of you have any of anti-toxin pills with you?" spoke Tsunade, where Sakura nodded and held some out where Tsunade took some and had Sakura give some to Jiraiya and Gaara. As the antitoxins pills would reduce the current effect of the poison they were infected with and slow its effects down for a while, although they still could not use their chakra. As the pills were not a cure, but only something to slow the poison down enough for them to be treated later on, as now was neither the place nor the time to be treated for the poison. "I suggest that you take your Hokage and the others away from here, as I will handle Orochimaru and the others myself," spoke the Raikage without even looking at the group. "Are you mad? You can't take on 3 Kage level and 2 High Jonin level shinobis on by yourself," spoke Kiba in disbelief. "I suggest you listen to him," spoke a new voice, where when the group turned they saw Zhuge Liang behind him accompanied by Yugito, Killer Bee, Fu, and Okastu. "You can't be serious, as strong as the Raikage is, he can't fight them alone," spoke Yamato. "We are deadly serious, and if you know what's good for you will move away from here, as you would only get in the way and get caught in the crossfire," spoke Yugito, with a serious look on his face. Although the group was still not entirely convinced, they did decided to move away a bit as Tsunade, Gaara and Jiraiya were in no condition to fight and it would be best that they were a distance away. Where they quickly shunned away to a building not too far from where the Raikage was facing Orochimaru and his allies, where they could see and hear everything clearly enough and were joined by Zhuge Liang and the others. Once the group was gone, the Raikage let down his lightning barrier, as there was no need for it. As he did, Orochimaru and the others watch him carefully in case he would try anything, although Orochimaru was looking at the Raikage with greater interest than any of the others were. "SSSSS, so this is the infamous Raikage," thought Orochimaru with no small measure of interest, as he was almost exactly how Kabuto described him. He seemed to almost emanate power, and he could feel the same powerful essence that Kabuto spoke of, which made everyone around the Raikage feel a combination of fear and respect for him, something that Orochimaru himself wanted to have everyone feel when they were around him. Orochimaru then turned to see how his allies were handling the appearance of the Raikage. Ryoku kept an emotionless face up as if not worried, although the concern could still be seen if one looked carefully enough. Orochimaru could also see the angry look on Shiro's face, and by the way he was standing, Orochimaru could tell that the man was barely able to contain his rage at seeing his sworn nemesis. Shinran and Doku both had concern and slightly worried looks on their faces, as they had not accounted that the Raikage would appear, and considering the Raikage reputation and what he showed in the Battle of Nami no Kuni, Wave Country, their concerns were not without good reason. "So, the legendary Raikage at last we finally meet face to face," spoke Orochimaru, "and I take it at how your forces are attacking our own, that you have allied with Konoha and sided against us," spoke Orochimaru. "I have not allied myself with Konoha, as the only side I have taken in this war is my own, and the only reason I have come here is not to save Konoha, but to eliminate you and your allies, for you did not heed my warning," replied the Raikage. "What do you mean by that?" spoke Orochimaru with a frown. "Do not play me for a fool, Orochimaru. Do you really think that your plans to wage attack my village and the Heavenly Alliance are not known to me?" spoke the Raikage, which caused a look of surprise to appear of the faces of the 5 leaders of the coalition. "I also know that my village now holds the library of Benziton, and as I told your lackey that if you ever threatened my village, I would destroy you, and I do not make idle threats," said the Raikage, where he finished with a strong intense burst of killing intent that made the coalition leaders take a step back. This revelation of course shocked Orochimaru and his allies along with the elder shinobi members of the Konoha group, as well as confused the younger shinobis. "The library of what?" said Konohamaru in confusion. "The library of Benziton," said Jiraiya. "So what is some big library?" said Kiba, not understanding why all the senior members of the group were so shocked and worried. The library of Benziton is not just any library, it is the greatest storage of knowledge in the entire elemental continent. It is said that during the Age of Endless War before the Sage of the Sixth Path spread the great shinobi arts to people, there existed an ancient order called the White Lotus Society made up of scholars and monks trained in an earlier form of the ninja arts before the Sage of the Sixth Path built the foundation of chakra and founded ninjutsu. When they saw the endless amount of lives being lost and the villages, towns, cities along with hundreds of books and scrolls being destroyed, the society decided to do something about it. They built a massive library dedicated to collecting and preserving knowledge and began to collect and gather books and scrolls of every kind and even writing and recording great events and things they had seen. They did this for hundreds of years, recording, collecting and even in some cases stealing the books and scrolls so to preserve them. They would even write down and describe in detail all the different techniques they'd seen shinobi's clans do, and how they had done and how a person could do them, and because of this they were hunted down. As the shinobi clans learned that the White Lotus Society was writing down all their secret techniques that they saw, and even stealing scrolls from them in other cases, the shinobi clans decided they could not be allowed to continue to exist and hunted the society members down so to keep their secrets. But despite that, the society continued to exist in secret and continued to collect and gather knowledge all over the elemental continent and stored it in the library that they called the Library of Benziton, after the goddess of knowledge. The society existed even when the great shinobi villages were founded, and they kept collecting and gathering knowledge, right up until 50 years ago, where the last remaining members of the order were captured and killed by the Shodaime Raikage. As he tried to gain the location of the library, as it was said that the library holds the greatest storage of jutsu in the known world. My grandfather, great-uncle and Sarutobi-sensei told us the story long ago, but I always thought that was all that the library was, a story, and it didn't actually exist, said Tsunade. Well, I can assure you, Hokage-san, the library is as real as you or I, spoke Zhuge Liang as he continued to watch the Raikage facing Orochimaru and his allies. Upon hearing this, Jiraiya frowned slightly, as if it was indeed true. Then it did explain how New Kumo became so powerful so quickly. As with the knowledge that was said to be accessible in the library of Benziton, then the nation that possessed it would be almost invincible, as in the shinobi world knowledge was power. He could also see why Orochimaru was so interested in it, as the library of Benziton was like Holy Grail for someone like Orochimaru who wanted to learn all the world's jutsu, as the amount of jutsu that was most likely collected there would be almost endless. Naturally, of course, when Orochimaru heard how the Raikage already knew of his plans for attacking New Kumo and the Heavenly Alliance, and about how he knew about the location of the library of Benziton, he was far from pleased. It got even worse, as Ryoku, Shrinen, Doku and Shiro were furious to hear how Orochimaru kept such important information from them. Orochimaru, is this true? Spoke Doku angrily. Did you know that New Kumo possessed the library of Benziton? Orochimaru of course did not respond to Doku's question and just glared at the Raikage, which told them clear enough that he had indeed known and kept the information to himself. Clearly your alliance is not as strong as you would like everyone to think, is it, Orochimaru? Asked the Raikage openly, where Orochimaru did not answer and only glared at the Raikage. Regardless though, I suggest that you listen to the offer I'm about to make, for the decision you're about to make will decide your fate and the fate of your shinobis along with you villagers, spoke the Raikage. And what is this offer? Asked Shinran. Surrender and order your forces to do the same and they will be shown mercy, and you will live, but if you do not, there will be no mercy, spoke the Raikage suddenly. Mercy? Cried the Mizukage Shiro in disbelief and anger. Mercy from you? The only one that should be begging for mercy is you, as you're going to die here, like the dog that you are, cried Shiro as he created a Mizu no Ken water sword and charged forward at the Raikage with it. So be it then, said the Raikage as he did not even move, whereas Shiro came closer and was about to stab him with his Mizu no Ken. The Raikage eyes started to glow even brighter, after which a massive explosion of chakra erupted around him, blowing the rooftop of the building that they were on apart, blasting Orochimaru and the others away, where they landed on another large building slightly away from the building they were just on, while leaving the Raikage floating in mid-air with lightning surrounding him again. Unbelievable. He blasted Orochimaru and the others away with just pure chakra, said a stunned Jiraiya as he still could not believe what he had just seen. Tsunade and the others minus Zhuge Liang and the others New Kumo nins were also equally stunned, as something like that was on the level of a Biju. What kind of monster is he? Muttered Kakashi, with some worry in his voice. End of Fairy Tail OST Volume 1 to 17. Fairy lore. After seeing this massive display of power, Orochimaru knew his chances of beating the Raikage alone were very slim, but if he worked together with Ryoku, Shiro, Doku and Shinran, then they would stand a good chance of beating the Raikage. For as strong as he was, there was no possible way he would be strong enough to defeat 3 Kage-level shinobis and 2 High Jonin level ones. Ryoku, Shiro, Doku, Shinran, we need to work together if we wish to defeat the Raikage, spoke Orochimaru to the others. Why should we work with you, after you deliberately withheld the fact New Kumo had the library Benziton from us, spoke Shrio angrily, while still glaring at the Raikage, who was floating towards them and landed on the opposite end of the large building that they were on now, where his eyes dimmed down, along with the lighting that was around him when he was floating in the air. Because if we do not, then he will kill us all, hissed Orochimaru angrily. He's right, we can't hope to defeat a monster like the Raikage alone, we need to work together, spoke Shinran. Fine, spoke Ryoku, but when this is over, don't think that we will forget that you deliberately withheld important information from us, just so that you could have it to yourself, and when this is over you will tell us everything you know, demanded Ryoku, where Orochimaru frowned but nodded in agreement. Upon hearing this, a scoffing sound was heard coming from the Raikage. You never learn, heavy team, even after I foiled your plans on 5 separate occasions. Who are you? Hissed Orochimaru angrily as he was losing patience, as his carefully laid plans for destroying Konoha were now ruined all because of this man. Have you not figured it out yet? Asked the Raikage openly. Then perhaps this will help you, he said, where he then took off his cage hat and threw it away, where the strong blowing wind blew it away, revealing short bright blonde hair that was slicked back so that it was spiked up at the back and had bright blue highlights in the shape of lightning bolts that traveled from the spike ends to the front. After throwing away his cage hat, the Raikage then took off his mask to show his face to everyone. Now, heavy team, do you remember me? Asked the Raikage, with a smirk, as everyone could not believe their eyes when they saw who the Raikage was, someone who they all thought was long since dead. Impossible, thought Tsunade and Jiraiya together as they couldn't believe their eyes. There no way it can be him, said Doku with some fear in his voice as he took a step back. It can't be, thought Kurenai as she knew it wasn't some genjutsu disguise as she could sense it or see through it if it was. Impossible. You're dead, you can't be him, cried the Tsuchikage with the utmost rage, fury and disbelief. Is this some kind of cruel trick by the Raikage? Spoke Kakashi as he too could not believe what he was seeing. How is this possible? Cried Orochimaru with fury, as he was beginning to lose his calm exterior. There's no possible way you can be alive, you're dead, I know it, he cried, as he refused to believe that he was still alive after all these years. For although his appearance had changed a bit from when he saw last him, it was still him, as he easily recognized the man who stole the title of Yondaime Hokage from him. For right before them was none other than the legendary shinobi himself, Namikaze Minato, better known as Konoha no Kiroi Senko, Konoha's Yellow Flash. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe, and see you guys later.